Alderwoman Ortiz Luna. Alderman McNamara? Here. Alderman Santiago.
Present.
Alderman Barrero.
Present.
Alderwoman Delernia.
Here.
Alderman Gibson.
Here.
Alderman Smedley. We also have Alderwoman Scott.
Here.
Alderman Malinowski.
Here.
Alderwoman Vargas.
Here.
And Alderwoman Barboza just.
Alderwoman Barbosa. Did I miss anybody on the alder people? Okay, and I'm going to try for the Board of Ed members. If I mess up your names, forgive me. Board Member Rivera?
Here.
Board Member Pazorski? Board Member Marino?
Here.
Board Member Petrisco?
Here.
Board Member Rich Reyes?
Here.
Board Member Diana Reyes?
Here.
Board Member Joan Pina?
Here.
Board Member Annie Parker?
Here.
Did I miss any board members? Superintendent Gaspar?
Present.
And I think there's someone else sitting that I don't know who it is.
Chief Financial Officer Ann Alfano. Chief Finance Officer Ann Alfano.
Thank you. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. May I have a motion to remove item number 37-139-1 from the table, please?
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Santiago.
I'd like to make a motion to remove item number 37139-1 from the table.
Second.
The motion to remove item number 37-139-1 from the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. At this time, I will call Dr. Gasper to make presentation for discussion.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dr.
Good evening, members of the council, alderpersons. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
You're welcome.
My first thank you is to, quite literally, my right hand this evening. I want to thank Ms. Alfano for being here. Ms. Alfano should be home resting at this moment, but she made the trek in today to make sure that the superintendent could make an informative presentation to you. So thank you, Ms. Alfano, for being here. I want to say thank you to our students, staff, parents, the mayor, and our legislative delegation for all of the advocacy that they have done over the past weeks and months with regard to our need for more support, both from the local and the state level, for our budget for education. I want to say thank you, council members, for listening to all of that advocacy, for sitting here for multiple hours over at least those 2 nights to listen to the advocacy. Thank you. And as I've said publicly, I do not envy your job in this work. It's very, very difficult, we know. I realized just recently that some of you are new to the council since I began here 4 years ago, so I thought perhaps a reset might be in order. I just want to give the brief story about what I said to the faculty on my very first day in front of them at convocation 4 years ago.
I'm sorry, Dr. Casper, I just want to see Alderman Luna, please.
Of course.
Thank you.
What I said to the faculty at that time, and I still say to this day, and you'll find it in a lot of our publications, is I believe that this school district can become and will become a beacon for urban public education in the region. And by that, what I mean is another conversation we have often. We often ask ourselves, what is the gap between us and world class? It's a really hard question to ask ourselves, and it's a hard question to answer sometimes. But we ask that question on purpose because we truly believe that every child from New Britain deserves a world-class education. We're going to start tonight by the story, which is in the numbers, which I truly believe we have begun that transformation. And that's part of the story that we ask you to consider when you consider how to fund our schools and our students. I believe that so strongly, not because of confidence in myself, but because of confidence of the people who are seated at the table with me and the people who are seated behind me tonight. The teachers, the administrators, the paraeducators, the parents, the grandparents, everybody else who's touching the lives of New Britain's kids. I do have a vivid memory of about a little more than 4 years ago when I interviewed for this job. And when I laid out my plan, the board asked me, how long will that take? And I told them 3 to 5 years. And they all paused and looked at me like, geez, that sounds like a long time. Well, we're just finishing year 4 now. And I firmly believe that we are beginning to become that turnaround story that I know is possible for the children of this city. When I say we're going to be a beacon, that means, are we giving world-class service to our kids? And it's beginning to happen. What I look for is, are people starting to copy us? Are people starting to come to our district to learn from us? And that's beginning to come true. So the American Reading Company, who produces our elementary reading materials, uses us as a model. Sandy Hook Promise, where we use for anonymous reporting system, uses us as a model. The State Department of Education, when it comes to the school improvement grant, uses us as a model. These are new developments. And again, it's the work of the people who are seated behind me and who are in our schools every single day that are making that come true. It's been a very tumultuous and sometimes vitriolic budget season so far. And I'm hoping to be as blunt, but also courteous and collegial with you tonight as I possibly can be. But it's important for you to know, based on some of the accusations that have been put out in the public, that our budget process begins in October, early October, in fact. So Ms. Alfano and I begin designing the budget process, and we begin meeting with every budget owner. And that's something new since my arrival. We involved, a conservative estimate would be over 200 staff members are involved in composing the budget that's presented to you after it is presented to the board. Every school principal has a voice in the budget, and I expect each principal to gather a team of teachers and staff at their school. Every department leader, such as facilities or curriculum, they're also expected to work with a team before they present to Ms. Alfano and me their needs. So this is not thrown together, it's not a wish list, and it's definitely not a fantasy or a hope. It's real numbers based on real needs, based on what the people on the ground doing the work are telling us they need to get the job done. We're asking for resources to continue that turnaround process. As I said, we're in the beginning, and tonight's request is about continuing that momentum. If we had held this meeting just 6 days ago, we'd be having a very different conversation tonight. Every superintendent and every board of education in the state is thankful to our state legislature and the governor for the support that we have so recently received. I brought up the fact about the timing, though, and the fact that we begin in October to let you know that we had to begin assuming that there would be no state support. That is, in fact, published. Let me say that properly. I apologize. No additional state support. I apologize. We've been told, as superintendents, we've been told that what we call the Alliance Grant, which is part of ECS, would be flat for fiscal year 26-27. So unfortunately, Ms. Alfano and I had to base our assumptions on that. We'll show you in the book later. In previous years, for example, for the current fiscal year, we received a $9 million bump, a $9 million increase in those Alliance dollars. But we knew about that when we began the budget process. So it was kind of baked in. The year before that, I believe it was 8.6 million. And again, we knew about that when we began the budget process, so it was baked in. So when that big number arrived on your desk, it was just as scary for us as it was for you. 18.9 million, 14.82%. That's because when we composed the budget, we had no knowledge that, so thankfully, this $13.3 million was going to be there. So the back and forth, the clamoring that we've seen in the community, some accusations lobbed right at me, unfortunately, in my opinion, were about timing. The timing of this budget year was different than any year we've had recently. Again, we knew that this additional money, and again, we're very thankful to the legislature who's advocated for this year's $9 million, last year's $8.6 million. That is money that we need just to keep things running in the face of inflation. We knew about that 8.6 in the previous October, and we knew about that 9 million in the previous October. What we knew for the budget year that we're talking about right now is we were told that number would be 0 additional. So that's why this has felt different or looked different. So I'm going to take you through the handout, the separate handout, the one that starts at the top. It says January 2006. You should have found one of those at each of your places. And again, this is about money tonight, but I'll be frank with you all, it's also about bragging, because part of my work here is to convince you and everybody who's watching from home that this is a worthwhile investment. And I think that the numbers and the work of the people in all of our schools prove that. So I think if I were a journalist or we were in journalism school, they'd call this burying the lead, which means you're supposed to save the big like punchline till the last, but we're going to start with the punchline first. So if you look at this book that you all received with our budget, right, the budget narrative, it's near one of the last pages just shows this top part. So basically what we've done is we've kept that top part and updated it at the bottom for this very recent infusion of money. So our total budget request is, and it continues to be, and I'll talk about that in a moment, $146,971,610 over the current budget, which is $128 million, for a difference of $18,971,610, or a percentage of 14.82%. And again, this is a process that began in October and takes months to compose. We are very, very thankful for the advocacy, again, from everybody involved, students, parents, teachers, our mayor, and the legislative delegation that advocated for the money we've only recently heard about, just in the last 6 days. $13,292,120, right? Which, if I'm reading the law that was passed correctly, must go directly to education. So thankful to see Mayor Sanchez confirm that publicly. So what we're doing is we're calling that the state contribution at the bottom. So the difference now between the 18.9 million with the infusion of the 13.2, what we're calling our local funding request. And for you, President Santiago, I think this is going to be a procedural thing. Superintendents, we have a call with Education Commissioner Russell Tucker tomorrow to really find out exactly how these monies work. So that means our local funding request of $5,679,490 to bridge the gap to our full request. And I mentioned that procedurally because what I've heard, and I don't know if the council or the mayor have received further communications than I have so far. Again, superintendents are on a call with Commissioner Russell Tucker tomorrow, is the 13.3 million will flow through the municipality. So I'm not sure if that's going to require a separate vote on your part as a council to apportion that to the board, or it'll be a single amount. So kind of stand by for further details. But what I believe I've heard so far is the 13.3 million will not flow directly to the school district as Alliance dollars have done in the past. So I think just from a procedural perspective, that's why we kept the top portion intact. But at the bottom, I wanted to delineate, we believe that the 13.3 million is flowing from the state to the municipality for the use of the schools, and therefore kind of the additional local funding, what I'm calling here the local funding request, is that 5.67 million, okay? Again, that's as much as I know at the moment, more details to come, but I wouldn't want the council to assume that 13.3 was automatically coming to the school district. The early information I have about that money is it'll flow to the municipality, okay? So I just wanted to be clear about that. Also, what is excellent news about the 13.3 million is, in my time here, kind of the net request, that 5.6 million, is actually my lowest budget request, the board's lowest budget request by percentage to date. The first budget request that I came forward to you with this board was 8.33%. In 24-25, it was 4.6%. And last year, my recommended budget to the board was 12.06%. So coming in today with you looking at the local portion being a 4.4% request, it's actually, as scary as this whole process started, it's actually the lowest percentage request that I've come forward before this council with. So it's been really a tumultuous time, a scary time, but also the good news of that really strong infusion from the state legislature and the governor makes a huge difference. I feel like that's a little bit complicated. Mr. Committee Chair, if you'd like me to pause for questions here, or I'll just continue on at your preference. I have plenty more to talk about, but I didn't know if you wanted to pause here.
I can.
Want to recognize Alderman Nate Simpson, just walked in. Thank you. Alderman McNamara.
Well, it's my understanding that 13.2, and as far as I'm concerned, is earmarked for the schools, period.
I believe that to be correct as well. It's written into the legislation, as I understand it, that it can only be spent on the schools. That's why I said I think it's more of a procedural thing where it has to flow through the municipality and then be apportioned to
Yeah.
the school. But again, I don't have that in writing yet. As soon as I do, I'll share it with you and with the mayor.
Yeah, we can get in there. I just want to thank Ms. Alfano for being here under duress. Not under, not under, and to appreciate your remarks about, when a campaign's over, the governing has to be in. And any questions tonight are in goodwill and respect, because the priority for all of us are the children of New Britain.
Of course.
So I think we can, we're not going to raise the temperature, I hope, tonight, but we are going to ask questions about how these cuts are being reduced.
Of course, of course.
Anybody, any other, okay.
So on the next page of the handout from tonight,
Thank
just to look at what I would call a remarkable beginning of a turnaround story. So this is the page at the top that says District Dashboard. It's a number of metrics about the school district. And there's a lot of things that every teacher, every principal, every mom, dad, every staff member should be proud of. When I began here 4 years ago, we had 5 schools in turnaround status. Turnaround status means you're among the 5% lowest performing schools in the state. We now have 2 schools in that status, which is amazing work by our staff at the schools that were removed, and we're confident that the 2 schools that remain are also headed in the right direction. I'm not going to go through every line, but student attendance is up. And again, I came here with a mission to change the reputation, at least the public, the outside reputation of this school district. People like to say that we were last, and we were. But I'll point you towards elementary English language arts. We are no longer last in the state. Elementary math, no longer last in the state. Middle school math, no longer last in the state. You've got a lot of different statistics there. Some of these are duplicated from the big book itself. Nearly twice as many kids, in just 3 years, nearly twice as many kids earning college credit while still at high school. Really amazing work by lots and lots of people around the district. If you want more detail, I kind of uncombined, if you'll allow me to invent a word, I uncombined the grade levels down below. And you can see at some grade levels, some remarkable growth. More than double in 3 years for grade 3 math, nearly tripled in 3 years for grade 4 math. Are all the metrics going in the way we want them to? Of course not. But you can see the page is dominated by green. It's really, really impressive work by people at every level of our organization, from the Board of Education through every single employee, every mom and dad. Again, we're going to keep the temperature low, Mr. McNamara, but I am going to point out the reality of, during my time here, we've actually slid backwards in our ranking for what we spend on our children. The year before I came, this school district ranked 148th out of 165 for per student spending. In the most recent, we rank 162nd out of 165 for per student budget. Now, I want to be clear. There are more dollars there. The dollars went up, but our dollars did not go up as quickly as most other districts. So I think that makes these accomplishments even more remarkable, even more noteworthy of what our staff, our parents, and really our community partners too, have done to improve the outcomes for New Britain's kids. And again, I want to say that these are not just my numbers. I've picked my time here because, again, some people chose to attack me personally. So I chose to show my time here and the change. A couple more pages. I'm not going to read these to you. Academic accomplishments. One that stands out, I'm sure you all remember this. We now have our first ever in the history of the city Blue Ribbon School at Hales Academy. many, many other noteworthy academic accomplishments, co-curricular accomplishments, meaning after-school clubs and sports, and then other, even things like Mr. Parker leading kids in how to learn how to ride bikes. Amazing project for which we were recognized at the state level.
He's right behind you.
Yeah. So I hope that you follow us on our social media. I hope you read the District Dispatch News, our monthly magazine. Really wonderful things are happening here. It's my job to brag about it just a little bit, so thank you for indulging me in that. The packet closes with an email that I sent to staff. I also shared it with Alderman Santiago and Alderman McNamara and asked that they share it with you. It's here in hard copy. It lays out what I just talked about kind of the budget timeline and just the sequence in which things happened, I believe is what made this budget season feel much more anxious and fraught. So that's just there for you as a reference. So with that, we'll get right into the numbers, if that's okay. Great. So again, I'm going to be referencing this book. Ms. Alfano here is going to help me with any of the really detailed questions that you have. I'm not going to go through every page. I'm just going to pick out some pages to highlight to you, but of course, we're happy to answer any questions on anything that is here. It's my goal just to point out the things that I think are most pertinent to your deliberations. I always like to start with the page labeled number 2 that looks like this with all these infographics on it. And what I've realized, this is my 11th year as a superintendent for Connecticut Public Schools. It's my 30th year in the profession. Not a lot of people really understand just how big of an enterprise, just how big of an operation a school district can be. So when the numbers are here, just to let you know just how big of an operation a school district is. Oftentimes I have a lot of friends who ask me things like, well, wouldn't schools be better if they were run like private companies? And then I give them about 90 minutes of my opinions on that. But if you did that, we would be an operation with well over 1,500 employees, 10,000 clients who get 6.5 hours of service a day. Probably something on the order of a hospital operation. Just look at the number of meals we serve. We serve nearly 11,000 meals, 11,000 meals every single day. We're a very, very large operation, a large entity. So I always like to point that out, just so people can grasp just how big we are. And again, please let me know if you have questions along the way, but I'm going to skip to pages 8 and 9 in the book if you could, please. You might have heard from other districts in the state, other urban districts in the state, Hartford, Stamford, who are seeing significant enrollment declines. Please don't quote me, but I think Hartford might be down something like 4,000 students over the last 7 to 8 years. That is certainly not true in New Britain. You'll see we're roughly flat. Some years we're up a couple hundred, some years we're down a couple hundred. And we don't have the money to hire an outside consultant, so I used AI to do a 10-year enrollment projection. And to the best of AI's ability, it thinks we're going to continue to be flat. So that's always a very logical question during budget presentations. You can see that on the left, both by race and ethnicity, but also overall. On the right, on page 9, are parts of our population that are really important to know about, because these are students who need and deserve some additional services. On the top right, page 9, you'll see our percentage of multilingual learners. These are the students who are learning English with us. You can see our line and the state average. Now, 1 in 5 students in our schools are in the process of learning English. They're a multilingual learner. You can see that's a very easy to find trend line as it trends up both at the state level and for us. Students with disabilities is below that, 1 in 4. 1 in 4, a quarter of all of our students have an IEP, an individualized education plan. So what's important to know about both of these graphs is, in one way or another, these students both need and deserve, and are required by law, some form of extra service. some form of extra staffing, some form of extra materials or support. So as these numbers trend up, our overall population might be staying right around 10,000, but the degree of need within those 10,000 kids is trending up, both when it comes to multilingual learners and students with disabilities. I'm going to turn one page to page 10 because we know, and this is, I'm sure will be one of your questions later, outplacements. I always like to remind everyone, and we do have some new members on the council, what is a special ed outplacement? We're really lucky, and in fact, and it's another way in which we're a model for some other districts, that we have excellent and extensive programs in district to serve kids with substantial disabilities. Those are called Pathways, Key, and Bridges. These are programs we have in-house. You can see them, they're demonstrated up top on page 10. For students who have substantial disabilities of one kind or another, that we can serve here, rather than putting them on a bus for an hour each way. Somewhere around 400 students, more or less, are served by these. In another district that didn't have these programs, all 400 of those kids would be on buses to places other than our schools. So Key, Pathways, and Bridges lets us keep kids close to home with their friends, with kids that they recognize and teachers that they know. However, when the student has such a substantial disability that we can't serve them even with those in-house programs, they become an outplacement. For us, those numbers have been hovering somewhere around between 160 and 180 students total district-wide out of 10,000. These services are quite expensive. Ms. Alfano and I actually ran the average for each of those 179 students, or between 160 and 180 students that are outplaced. The average cost is $189,000 per student per year. Every school district in Connecticut, every school district in the nation has a certain number of outplacements. So this is not unique to New Britain. And again, we do everything we can to keep kids here. However, outplacements are a fact of life for every school district, and they are quite expensive. A question that I know will come up later that I'll take time to answer here. Again, we are thankful to the legislature. In the last session, the legislature enacted a law that will regulate what these private providers can charge. However, that law does not take effect until the 27-28 school year. So, for the 26-27 school year, most of those providers have told us to expect a 10% increase. So that 189,000 per student per year number, we are projecting to go up by at least 10%. Right now, these are private providers that are not regulated until that law kicks in one fiscal year from now, not the coming fiscal year 27-28. So we're thankful. Many people, my state association lobbied hard for that law because it's basically the public dollars that you all oversee. We're just a pass-through. Those dollars come to us and then we pass them on, we pay invoices to these private providers. So we're thankful that they will be regulated, but unfortunately, some of them seem to really be raising their prices by a lot, by 10%, before that law takes effect. So again, outplacements is such a large part of our budget and a large part of the increase that we're proposing tonight. I always take time to talk about that. What you'll see in the chart at the bottom of page 10, however, I believe shows just how responsible we are with that. So we're part of District Reference Group I, DIRG I, if you hear us say it shorthand. It's basically all of the urban districts in Connecticut. So when we have comparisons that are available, that's what you'll see in the book. There's no sense in comparing New Britain to Farmington or Simsbury or Greenwich. We compare ourselves to districts that have characteristics like we do. So if you look at that chart on page 10, you can see we're right in the middle. There are some districts such as Hartford, who's outplacing basically a third of all their special ed kids. There's a few districts that have a little bit less than we, but we're right in the middle. About 16% of all of those students. So at a quarter, we have around 2,500 special education students in the district. About 16% of those 2,500 have such a substantial disability that they need to go to an outplacement for their services. So again, I know that outplacements are such a big part of our budget. I always like to linger there. Another question that comes up quite often is, how are we staffed? So something that I would like to pause to point out, you'll say on page 14, right? This is my 11th time presenting a budget to a city government. This is the 11th time I've had to answer the question, I heard you're top-heavy. I heard you have too many of those darn administrators. For us, it's simply not true. And by the way, this is all public data. You have the same access to all this data via the state of Connecticut as I do. You can see at the bottom of page 14, of our group, that district reference group I, we actually have the lowest percentage of school and district administrators of any other district in our group, and by some margin. Only 2.7% of our total staff are either school or district administrators. And again, this is all public information. What I would take you next to, please, and again, I'm purposely kind of giving you what I think are the highlights, but we'll be happy to answer any questions from any of the book or in the thick budget book too. If you go to page 20, I'm going to brag just a little bit more. Some of those changes and improvements that I talked about earlier, I hope when you have a moment, if you haven't already, you'll come to these pages about our results. So SBA, Smarter Balanced Assessment, is the state mandated test in grades 3 through 8. You'll see those on the left. Really special note to the work that we've done in mathematics. Going from 7.9% kids proficient to 19.1 is truly amazing work in just 3 years' time. Top right, as I say, not all of our metrics are going in the direction that we want, but that helps us know what the next priority is. Middle school ELA is not going in the right direction. However, middle school math on the bottom right is. It's creeping up, but it's also going in the right direction. And you had more detail on that in the handout, the separate handout that I gave you tonight. High school results are up and down in ELA, and unfortunately, we follow the statewide trend of high school math scores going down. That's not an excuse. Neither Mr. Pierce nor I accept that, but it is a fact that we are unfortunately on trend, and we're working on ways to change that. Top right is another really good metric. We talked about those 1 in 5 kids who's a multilingual learner. Top right is our success at successfully teaching them English and getting them to exit our multilingual program. For a child to no longer be considered a multilingual learner, they have to pass the Las Links test. And at the top right of page 23, that's where you'll see those results. Personal project for me has been to help us get more and more college partnerships, working very closely with Dr. Toro at CCSU and many others, with lots of help from our district administrators. You'll see we've nearly doubled in my time here, and we've more than doubled the number of kids getting college credit, the college credit courses being passed since the beginning of the chart here. So really, really good things happening for our kids. I would take you next, if you could, to get back to kind of the money. We'll go to page 30, please. Actually, no, I'd like to pause at page 29. I apologize. Where again, I said thank you to our state delegation who's been advocating for us for many years for additional funding. What you see in the chart here is the total funding that's come to the district. I'm on the bottom right of page 29. And I'm going to have to speak to Mr. Figat about how small the font is, because I really need my cheaters for this one. So first thing, you can see the total funding has gone up, and dollars have gone up. What I spoke earlier was ranking. Compared to other districts, we've fallen further behind. Dollars have gone up, and I want to be clear about that. But you can see if you follow the gold band, the state aid is the primary way in which funding has gone up. And again, thankful to our legislative delegation for that. Working backwards from right to left, from fiscal year 25 to 26, an extra $9 million in state funding. Backwards one more year, from fiscal year 24 to 25, $8.6 million. 3.3, 3.9, 3.9 million. You can see the dark blue band at the bottom, that's local funding, the funding that you folks oversee. You can see that's relatively flat, going from 125.7 million to 128 million over the 6-year span. I also want to recognize, because I know it's something that I hope that you're considering as a way, it's not our favorite way to be funded, but the very small green band that you see on top of the dark blue band is your special revenue fund. Again, those are dollars that we're thankful for. We put them to use. Basically, this year, the 3.6 million has gone straight to outplacements. Straight to special ed outplacements. I do want to make one point of clarity, please. Looking at the mayor's budget, I believe the budget page about the Board of Education is correct with reference to what was budgeted last year. However, I've shared with the mayor and a commitment letter that the district received from Mayor Stewart, and then this council did vote on an additional 1.0 million from special revenue. So I just want to be clear, in the mayor's budget, it indicates that in the current year, we're receiving 2.6 million from special revenue. That was correct upon passage of your budget, but then at a later date, Ms. Alfano, do we know when that was passed?
Sometime September.
In September, this council, and again, we're thankful for the support, I do want to make sure I say that multiple times, apportioned in an extra million. So the actual that we are receiving from special revenue this year is 3.6 million. What was approved and is reflected in the mayor's budget book was the 2.6. It's a case where both are correct. So I just want to make sure we're clear about that. And again, we're thankful for the special revenue fund, but as we all know, the danger, the peril there is those are monies that do not automatically come back next year. They do not set the new floor, the new MBR. So getting back to the money on page 30 is a full breakdown of our revenues. So this is an all funds showing of where the monies are derived, everything from general fund, priority school district, the title grants, etc. On the right is a plot of all the money versus inflation. So I'm a taxpayer just like you. Just because I'm here asking you to invest tax money doesn't mean I'm not also a taxpayer. And as a superintendent, before I present to the Board of Education, I always ask myself, Gasper, are you being reasonable? Are you asking for something that's unreasonable? So what you'll find here is plotted across, I'm at the top of page 31, plotted across from left to right, are the funds that were apportioned from 2020-21 through our request in the current year. What you'll see, and I apologize that the numbers don't quite match up, the green is the general fund, the fund that you have the most direct oversight. Just above that, you'll find at 131.6 million is total local funding. So that's general fund that you apportion to the board plus the special revenue that you apportion to the board. That's that 131.6. So then I ask myself, is that reasonable? If you see the gray dashed line above that, they all begin at 125.7. If you go to the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics, you can ask it about inflation. $1 in 2020 versus $1 in 2026. So that gray dashed line that has a little bit of an up-down curve to it, that's inflation. So in other words, 125.7 million, if that had kept up with inflation, today would be 156.7 million. And then, just to ask myself if I'm crazy for my budget proposal, the dotted purple line have been my budget proposals to the board in my time here, in my 4 budgets here. So it's just a comparison of actual funds versus inflation according to the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics. And again, this is all public information, but happy to answer more questions about it. The top 2 lines, the light blue and the gold, are the same but for total funding, meaning all the funds, federal, state, and local. You can see that begins at 177 million and ends at 196 million. And then the blue dashed line, the light blue dashed line, is inflation versus that original number. Unfortunately, the only time we were above inflation was during COVID with the ESSER relief dollars. So the special relief dollars we got during and after COVID are what makes that chart go above inflation. So just a point of reference as to the degree to which the school district is funded. Then next on to page 32 and 33. Again, I think about determining what is reasonable for a level of funding is about comparisons. So those of you who've been on the council have seen this chart before. This is an attempt just to show you what all the school districts pay. And of course, we can't fit all the school districts on one page on the left, so it's abridged. But we're sure to include the comparison districts. And because some districts are big and some districts are small, even those within our district reference group, we do this per student. So if you can see here, and again, wherever we show you this, it's whatever is the most recently available data publicly when the document was produced. The tiny little town of Sharon, way out in the northwest corner of the state, I believe, invests $46,587 per year per child from their local funds. They spend the most of anybody in the state. Tiny little district, they refuse to regionalize, and the voters of that town choose to spend that much. They choose to invest that much in their schools and children. Ranging all the way down the bottom of this year's list is Meriden. Meriden spends the least of any district in the state at $16,350 per kid per year. As you can see, you can find us just a little bit above that at $17,518. We rank 162. And then I ask myself, well, is that reasonable? So what you'll find next to that, I'm sure this is a statistic that this council reviews often, and that's the ANGLIC. Ms. Alfano is going to correct me if I get it wrong. I believe that stands for Adjusted Equalized Net Grand List Per Capita. Finally, after 11 years of doing this, I finally got that right. It's basically ability to pay. You can see there's not a good correlation between what a district pays and their grand list, their tax base. Hartford spends at the rank of 61st in the state. So only 60 towns spend more per child than Hartford, but they rank dead last for what they can afford to pay. So that's there just for your reference too. This is all public data. And last year we had a question about, well, it's about taxable property. So you'll find that in the very right-hand column. What percent of property in a town is tax exempt? Again, according to the state of Connecticut, for us, it's 36.2. But you'll see some towns like New London or even New Haven, where half of the property is not taxable. They're investing $21,926 per kid. So there tends not to be a really good correlation between grand list, taxable property, and what a municipal government such as yourselves actually chooses to budget for education. So again, this is just there for your consideration. On the top right, on page 33, is a comparison I've been doing for many, many years. I ask myself, what would it take? What would it take for each New Britain child to be funded at the same level as a child in another town? And again, I'm not much of a mathematician. I invented this math. If you don't like it, we can get together and nerd out and you can show me a different way to do it. So what you see at the top is our number, 17,518.90. And then for each row in the chart, if we just look across the top, Hartford, you'll see Hartford again, the same number, $24,901.20. So I subtract our number from theirs, and for every single child in Hartford, they spend $7,382 more per kid per year. You can see that ranges down to Bridgeport that spends $808 more per kid per year. So I just pick one in the middle, New London. It's a city much like ours. It's a smaller city. It's not a Hartford or a New Haven. They spend $4,521 more per child per year. And then I ask myself, what would our budget look like? What would the New Britain Board of Education budget look like if each New Britain child were funded at the same level as each New London child? And that comes out to, I multiply by our number of kids. So if you take the difference of 4,521 and multiply by 10,034 students, you end up with this sentence. If each New Britain child were funded at the same level as each New London child, you'd have to add $45 million to our budget. The chart below, funding mix, where does the money come from? If you compare us and New London, so this is federal, state, local, and some districts have a tiny bit of tuition if they take kids from other districts. You can see the primary difference between us and New London is the percentage in the local. And again, let me say what I started with and I've said multiple times publicly. I do not envy you as alderpeople. You have really, really difficult decision to make. You've got lots of other of your departments coming before you besides the Board of Education, and everybody's got a real need for dollars. And nobody wants taxes to go up. But what the chart shows is the primary difference between the kids of New London and the kids of New Britain is local contribution. Federal dollars, state dollars, they tend to all be driven by formulas. The real difference comes down to local. I'm not here to shame you, I'm not here to antagonize you, but these are the facts, and they've been like this for quite some time. Finishing up, I'm just going to take you through a couple more pages, and then Ms. Alfano are happy to answer your deeper questions. I want to go to page 37 if we could, please. Excuse me, we'll start on page 36, and then we'll go to 37. If you look at the bottom of page 36, special education cost. We won't have this for the current year until, obviously, we finish the fiscal year, but as of last year, for the 24-25 school year, and these are local dollars, correct, Ms. Alfano? Of the $128 million that this council apportioned to the board, nearly $59 million was dedicated just to special education. Again, these children need and deserve these services. I'm not saying that we should cut these services, obviously, but it's important for every member of the Board of Education and every member of Common Council to understand this is the burden. When you hear it in the news that every district is saying that special education costs are spiraling upward and upward, this is what that means. I'll just repeat myself, out of $128 million local budget that this council apportioned to the board, nearly $59 million went to special ed. And this is not creative accounting. Ms. Alfano uses the state-approved formula for determining this portion. I've said this publicly, I'm going to say it here again, because I'm hoping that you all will join us in the coming legislative session. I say this with a lot of respect to our legislators, especially our local ones. Everything about how special education is funded is broken. It is a layer cake of good intentions. Laws have been enacted with good intentions, but everything about how it's funded right now is broken. I'm going to give you one example, and Ms. Alfano, again, will correct me where I'm wrong. Part of preparing this budget is we have to anticipate something called excess cost reimbursement. For those students that are especially costly in their services, those students on outplacements, we do get a reimbursement. You'll find that in the revenues in this budget. However, we never know how much, and it's never as much as state law says it should be. So we began, as I said, this budget process began for us in October of 25 for the fiscal year 26-27. We will not have an estimate about what that reimbursement will be until November?
November, December.
Until November or December of 26. So we'll be almost halfway through the fiscal year that's affected before we even know how much money that will be. State law says that we should receive 91% once you do the formula, correct? 91? 91% reimbursement once we reach a threshold. We've never gotten more than 70. Again, this is with all due respect to the legislators who've been trying to work on this for a very long time. Everything about how special education is funded is broken. So I'm hopeful that Governor Lamont has said he's pulling together a blue ribbon panel to look at how ECS funding is done. I'm hopeful that they also discuss special education funding, because it's not fair to boards of education, and it's not fair to you all as municipal government to have this much variability and this much uncertainty for this much cost. And again, I want to repeat myself, These students need and deserve these services. They should get high-quality services, but the way in which state law lays out the funding for them is very, very broken. On that note, I'm going to go to page 37 on the right. I'm going to go to the chart at the bottom, and it's the biggest item. I'm sure it caught your attention when you looked at our budget. And this is definitely where I'm going to need more help from Ms. Alfano. If you look at line 560 on the chart on the bottom, 560, tuition, special ed outplaced. That's what we've been discussing. And you look at a jump from 3.5, about 3.5 million, to 14 million for a difference of 10 million. I want to explain where that 10 million jump comes from. First and foremost, and this is why I paused to explain the special revenue fund earlier. The special revenue fund, city funds that you give to the board for our use, that's exactly where it is, but it's not budgeted for. So the actual amount in the current year is this 3.5 million plus 3.6 million. So the reality of that left-hand column, we can't represent it that way because the city actually holds the money. We don't hold the special revenue money, you do. It's really about 6.1 million. So the practical jump is really more about going from 6.1 to 14. This is the line of our budget. In a district this big with 10,000 students, this is really the only line in our budget where we actually look at kids by name. Ms. Alfano, Mr. Spalding, members of their teams actually go kid by kid. Out of those between 160 and 180 kids, how old is Tony? Is Tony about ready to graduate? Did Tony do well in that program? Does he need more services next year or less? This is a line that is really highly scrutinized. On top of that, we're expecting more students, and we're expecting each of those students to have more services. So we're expecting more students with more severe need, and these outplacement facilities, they bill a la carte. Every single individual adult or resource at these facilities gets billed separately, much like when you go to the hospital. On top of that, it's that 10% that I mentioned earlier. They're kicking up their rates by 10% before the law goes into effect in the following fiscal year. So that would be a line I would expect for you to have noticed. Ms. Alfano, is there anything further about that that I forgot to mention about? Okay, that doesn't usually happen that she tells me I'm correct. Almost done, and again, we're happy to go back to any of the pages that I've skipped over. I just want to show you of what that looks like graphically. On page 40, it's just a graphical representation of the increase on the bottom. And you can see the bright blue, the turquoise bar at the bottom, that's just the increase in those outplacements. And again, the first 3.6 million of that is kind of replacing the 3.6 million that you apportioned to us in special revenue. But nonetheless, you can see of all the increases, of the total increase, pardon me, the special ed tuition, the outplacement, is more than half of everything that we are requesting as an increase. So that's the end of my overview. I thank you for your patience. Ms. Alfano and I are happy to expand or answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Casper. Any questions from Alderwoman DeLernia?
I'm trying my best to follow. There's
That's
a
okay.
lot to take in. I have a few questions. I'm going to try and work backwards, I guess,
Okay.
from my notes. One of the last things you talked about was, let me see, the reimbursement, special ed reimbursement.
Sure.
You mentioned a percentage comes back to us, but what is that in dollars?
So it's different for each child. So some outplacements cost $90,000 for a child per year. Some outplacements cost $300,000 per child per year. The way the law works is you have to take what the district already spends on average. That's that 17,800 number. And according to the state law, you take that 17,000 and you multiply that by 4.5 times. So no matter what, the school district is responsible for the first 4.5 times per child of what we spend typically. So we usually guess that that's somewhere around $85,000.
So what is that annually?
So I'm not, it's even more complex than that. So just so I can do the math in my head, if we say that we have an outplaced child that costs $200,000 a year, and that's all in, that includes transportation when we have to bus the child back and forth. We are responsible, no matter what, for the first $85,000 per child per year, for that child for that year. Then we have $115,000 that is technically reimbursable. We are supposed to receive back from the state 91% of that. We have never received more than 70. I think in my time here, the lowest we received was somewhere around 62%. 62% up to 70. And this is the thing that we had to guess at back in this past October, that we will not know for sure until the coming December, while we're already in the middle of the fiscal year that we're talking about tonight.
So again, it's always been averaging around 62%, but again, in dollars, what is that annually?
How much is the total revenue?
Yeah, I mean, 3 million, 4 million,
Yep.
what is the
For 24-25, it's 9.9 million total.
Yep.
9.9 million?
Yes, for the current year, I'm projecting approximately 12.9 million. The final report has just been submitted, so we'll have that number the end of May.
And that is actually on page 30 in the book.
And is that what we've been averaging for the past few years?
Again, it depends on that percentage, what that reimbursement rate is. So it fluctuates.
It doesn't trend in one direction, unfortunately. In the previous fiscal year, it was 11 million. In the current fiscal year, we were told to expect 13, but it could just as easily go back to 11.
Okay.
And again, this is what I mean, lots of people with good intentions, this is what I mean when I say special ed funding is broken.
This list here that I have, is this, are these the cuts now that you were receiving a 13.6 million, is it? 13.3 million from the state? What is this?
What's the document dated, please?
So potential reductions.
Potential reduction?
There were two of those documents, can you tell me what the date is at the top?
I don't have a date on mine.
On this one.
Okay. So I presented two of those documents. At this point, both of those documents, I would say are moot. They were really done before the full kind of scope of the 13.3 million. I would say, and again, this is no disrespect, obviously, to Mayor Sanchez. We are not yet kind of including the 1 million proposed by Mayor Sanchez, and again, we're glad that that's part of the general fund. We're just kind of going with what we know for sure. So the cuts that we would see at this point would really still be spread across multiple areas. It would involve some teachers, some administrators, right? The teachers would be by attrition at this point, except for just 3 non-renewals, some central office and some central office administrators, and lots of other different kinds of reductions. But again, I'd hesitate to give a firm number, especially because what's important to remember about anything in that document is those are just recommendations from the superintendent to the Board of Education. The board may choose to go along with my recommendations, or they may choose to do something different.
So do you know if we have many retirements and resignations coming up?
I know that those have already been factored into the budget.
They all have been.
They all have been. We may get some more between now and the end of the school year. That does typically happen, but we're thankful to retirees who let us know early. We typically do get, a typical number of people who resign to go to work in other places or other industries.
Okay. If we, the city, were to add an additional 1.6 million to your budget, what would be your priorities?
That's an incredibly difficult question, because 1.6 is still a pretty good way away. I believe that in what we've talked about so far, what you've probably seen me talk about to the board,
And I want to make it clear, on top of the 1 million that the mayor has already proposed.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that would get us almost halfway through the 5.6 gap. My recommendations to the board will be to look at school operations, to look at what has helped us get this far. So, for example, currently some of the reductions have been called coaches, but that's not actually fully accurate because our coaches are actually also giving student-facing services. So we have a lot of people who've helped us move things forward for our kids, improve outcomes for kids, who are not only helping kids remediate when kids fall behind, but also they're helping their fellow teachers be better. We have cuts in custodial. That scares me a little bit, right? We need to keep our places clean and safe. Still on the list for consideration are cuts to extracurriculars for kids. I don't like that. A 10% reduction for high school sports. I don't like that. So there are things that are student-facing that don't always appear student-facing on that list. So it'll be my job to say to the board, really, where is the impact that we can best have? I'm sorry that's not the line-by-line answer, but it's really,
I guess, I mean, you can help us by, identifying where your priorities would be if.
simply
if-
stated, I'm gonna give you the general answer and then a more specific answer. We've been among the most poorly funded school districts in the state for a very long time, not just during my time here. Both myself as a superintendent, former superintendents, former CFOs, and former boards, there's nothing fancy. When you compare what we are able to offer to kids compared to some of the other districts like us, we just don't have fluff, right? I know that you might think every superintendent comes before you and says such things. I just hope you'll trust me that the school has been funded at such a level for such a long time that my predecessors, plural, have already taken away the stuff that was easy to take. So that's a long way of saying there's really nothing on that potential cut list that doesn't touch kids in some way. My goal will be to look at the number that the council apportions to the board, look at what's remaining on the potential cut list. Again, thanks to first kind of the early discussion, we were able to take that non-renewal list from 49 to 15. And then when it was actually confirmed that we were getting 13.3, I felt confident recommending to the board, we rescinded all but 3 of those 15. And still, I don't like having 3 non-renewals, but nonetheless, it's my job to present to the board kind of the financial realities.
So then is it fair to say any additional money, you would take back those 3,
Those 3 teachers,
the non-renewals, yeah?
that's a very complicated question. It's a very complicated question. I wish I could say yes, but the fact of the matter is, between now and then, we might have resignations that make that non-renewal not necessary.
That's fair.
And it's also complex in the way that we may get new numbers for enrollment for next year. If we have changes in the number of special education students, multilingual students, students in a particular grade over another, we have to adjust, and we do adjust every single summer. So again, I'd love to say yes to your question. That would be the answer that everybody, including the superintendent, wants to hear, but it wouldn't be factual.
Okay. I'm curious because I don't understand how all the money is spent, but as far as speech therapists, occupational therapy, social workers, are they school hires or are they contracted?
For folks like that, it's typically a mix. We hire as many of those as we can find for ourselves, but when we can't find enough, we do go to contractors. So, and those are services that are very specifically laid out in a student's special education plan.
Okay. All right, I will, for now. Thank you.
Alderman McNamara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Gasper, I went back to your, the dark night of April 23rd, and the proposed cuts of 8.7 million, and almost all of them, including 10 coaches, were proposed and not cast in stone. I understand that. But I take your point about holding administrative costs down, but I'm looking at the Personnel and Talent Office in your budget. That's $4.8 million. And a good chunk is from the general fund, which we're responsible for in trying to close this $5.6 million gap. I'm saying, could it be revisited, or would it be prudent to take another look at non-student facing, and that includes sports and other things that enhance the student experience, and also classroom, student facing, to look at those budgets again internally to perhaps mitigate any gap we might end up with. In other words, I see a custodian, but custodians count for a lot. Do I see an administration? I don't see any administrative cuts here.
You certainly do, sir, at the top of the list under district-wide.
Oh, correct me, please.
It's near the top of the list, may I? Sure, if you find in the third line, central office administrators, 3. To your answer about talent, I would very respectfully challenge that. So this is why I paused at the beginning to reiterate just how big of an entity we are. So talent is the new word for HR. If you had a private company of over 1,500 employees, how many people would be working in HR? Especially in a unionized, highly regulated, highly legislated field like ours. So I spend a lot of time on our second floor. I don't see anybody who's not working hard all day, managing certifications, managing FMLA, managing all kinds of requests and changes in benefits. So it would be easy for me to say, yeah, sure, we'll cut there. And that's why I like to remind us that we are a very large entity with over 1,500 employees. And I don't know, how many employees does a hospital with 1,500 total employees having working in HR?
Oh, I know the city of New Britain has 600 employees and 2.5 or 3 people right now. So but I understand education is a different animal. Could I back up and say, are our teacher salaries competitive based on collective bargaining?
Generally, yes, right? And those are always negotiated in good faith as the contract comes up for renewal.
And I assume this office tracks retention rates of our, retention rates of our teacher personnel?
Yeah, so you'll find that in the book, Mr. McNamara.
Okay.
And it's actually quite good news compared to our peer districts. You will find that on page 17 of the book. We're right around 90% retention. Again, this is official state data. You have the same access to this data as I do. You'll see our data over time at the top of page 17, and at the bottom of page 17, you'll see in our district group, we rank second. So nearly the best, the second best teacher retention of our peer group.
And if, thank you for those answers. And if I hear you correctly, the influx of state aid, given the short amount of time, you have not shared with the board what cuts you've rescinded? I came late to the meeting Monday night, so
I'll clarify. Again, this is why I want to give special kudos to Ms. Alfano, Dr. Sanders, and members of the talent department team. We spent months building this budget, and then in 3 weeks, we redid it 3 times. The first time we redid the budget was based on the release of the mayor's budget, where I initiated cuts of up to $7 million. and then we redid it with cuts of up to 12 million. And then when the good news of the 13.3 influx was released, we redid it again. So from the reason I asked Alderwoman Delarnia about which document she was looking at. So on the most recent document that I released on the 29th, thank you. The difference between my assumptions that were on the 29th and then the 13.3 were an additional, on the 29th, my assumptions were based on an educated guess of $11 million from the state. We were glad to see that an extra 2.3 million came back in addition to that. So what came off of that April 29th document were 12 of the 15 non-renewals, restoring all of the family school liaisons, and restoring special education, restoring regular education, transportation for pre-K. Those three items total the 2.3 million that were not part of my original assumptions.
Well, thank you for that. Could I ask Ms. Alfano, I noticed the insurance line, and maybe you don't have any control over it, wouldn't surprise me with insurance, seems to fluctuate a great deal. Can you say where we're at? I know the city and schools took a new medical insurance carrier, I believe, and I asked about it. The city, if there was supposed to be savings kicked in for both entities, and I was told that that hasn't kicked in yet. Could you comment roughly on our insurance costs?
Sure, I can. Currently, unfortunately, we are trending higher than what was projected. We did, the city, in combination with the city, we did go out to bid. And the expectation of what our claims would be and what they actually are, there's definitely a variance. In the beginning of the year, we do have a runoff with Anthem, so those claims have been coming through. I think we're almost done with that. And now we're starting to see the Cigna claims. Those are now coming in, correct? Because all the deductibles, once someone hits their deductible, then that's when it starts impacting our costs. So we are currently trending much higher than what we expected. Based on our claims to date, I do expect us to be approximately between $29 and $30 million in claims by June 30th, which is much higher than what was projected by Lockton in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, we were, the previous council was informed it'd be $6 million savings over 3 years. That proof will be in the pudding,
Yeah.
shared by both entities, yeah? Sure. Okay, thanks. And I just want to comment on your document, your previous here's the flat line on local aid to education, frozen for quite some time at 128 million. I think foundationally, a commitment has been made this year to raise the MBR. And if 12 years ago, the MBR, not a lot, but given more due consideration, we wouldn't be in this place today. I think I'm reiterating what you're talking about.
So it's not part of the handout tonight, but thank you for showing me one of my own handouts, Mr. McNamara. What that handout shows is a what-if analysis that Ms. Alfano did. I colloquially refer to that as the woulda, shoulda, coulda chart. And what it shows is, I believe it goes back 10 years?
12.
12, thank you. If the council had apportioned an increase of 1.5% every year, this year, rather than that 14%, we would be asking for 1.01%.
That's why we're trying with you to turn the corner.
We agree.
By the MBR.
We agree. And as I said, I do not envy your job. You have very, very difficult decisions to make. I'll say this, we often speak in round numbers because the numbers are so large. I think Ms. Alfano will agree. Our costs, the district's costs to keep everything the same, it's reasonable to expect somewhere between 5 and 7 million a year. 5 and 7%, excuse me. 5 and 7% a year right? That's the inflation that we all hit, but also these things like outplacements that go up 10%, bus contracts that go up 6%, between 5 and 7%. Rough numbers, our budget is $200 million. So that means to stay the same, it's somewhere between 10 and $14 million a year to stay the same. So that's incredibly difficult for you folks. It's incredibly difficult for me to propose to the board and then for the board to move on to you. But these are facts. This is, tiny little 2.5% raises for some of our folks. It's that's not making up. It's things like you bring up, Mr. McNamara. It's insurance costs that we received a promise from the provider and from the analysts that just isn't coming true. It's special ed facilities that are currently not regulated that can raise their rates by 10% at will. So it's incredibly difficult each and every year to know that if our costs are going up 5 to 7%, and unless state aid goes up, the only place we can ask for that is you folks. We know we're giving you a hard task, but if we don't keep up with that form of inflation, the only other option is to cut staff or services. And I know that nobody on the council and certainly nobody on the board side wants to do that, but these are the unfortunate facts of the math.
Alderwoman Vargas.
Thank you. Just reviewing the district dashboard that you shared with us.
Sure.
I see that it says special ed students outplaced. I see a decrease there from 17.1% to 16.2%.
Yes.
But you're also projecting that we're going to get more, where we're spending almost 10 million more.
Correct.
Is that because of the cost that you're anticipating of the services, or can you explain that a little bit more?
So those dipped really in my first year here, and they've been kind of edging up slightly. But again, it's each child who is outplaced is such a cost, right? Just to use round figures, $200,000, 189, but that's going to go up by 10% next year. So that 10 million, excuse me, that's where I said, realistically, the current budget is actually 6.1 because it's the it's the current budget amount plus the 3.6 that we received from you all in special revenue. So the change isn't as big as it looks when you build, if you build back in the fact that we had the special revenue. But nonetheless, you were exactly correct. And that's what I meant when I say we are expecting more students, even if that number goes up by 5 or 7 students. If it goes up from the current 172, I think, to 180, that's 8 kids multiplied by 200,000. That's 1.6 million right there. But what we're also expecting is, what we're seeing is kids are becoming more and more needy. Their needs are deeper and deeper, which means the a la carte services that these students get at those facilities, they're not just charging us for a teacher, they're charging us for a teacher and a speech path and a behavior tech and time with the para. Everything is charged a la carte. So we have to really look at our current actuals, and and it's it's daunting for us too.
On your proposed, I think the 23rd, you proposed some additional changes. On there, though, it also says that you're going to remove 2 special ed teachers in the middle school. Mm-hmm. Are those part of those specialized programs, or can you explain what those 2 positions?
No, and really that's based on current need, right? So those are recommendations that would come to me from the department leadership. Again, it's not, I would just remind the council that my submitted budget, the board submitted budget, doesn't have any of those reductions. This is like, if we had to do without, we could. It's kind of the right way to look at it.
I know, but if we're projecting such a need and we're trying to not have so many children
Sure.
outplaced, like
Right.
I would think that we wouldn't try to keep those positions.
So in the most recent document, in the April 29th I recommended reinstating those two middle school special ed teachers in particular.
Oh, then I have a few more questions. Another thing that I noticed as one of the proposed, I guess, removal of staff were the non-instructional paraeducators.
Yep.
And I just find that we would consider those positions, especially with the great progress that was made at the high school. Can you explain why that was decided or how that was decided?
So we've had vacancies for instructional paras for a very long time. The non-instructional paras is actually something that I have never heard of before coming to New Britain. They're doing important work, but the work they're doing is actually somewhat more secretarial in nature, but they're members of the paraeducator unit. So if we had to cut, again, I did not propose cutting them, but if we have to cut, it seems logical that we should take people who are already in the para unit and have them serve students. And we've talked about moving things to where it's student-facing.
I know, I see that being one of the strengths with the 640 students earning, those credits, and I
would agree
probably
with-
think that has a lot to do with the Career Center
I
at the
would-
high school, so
I would agree with you. These are not cuts that I desire to make.
that's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Farkas. Alderwoman Delarnia.
Can I?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Who did you?
Alderwoman Maldonado.
Okay.
I apologize.
Hi, Dr. Casper. I really appreciate the graph. I love graph, and this really caught my attention. But I can tell you that a lot of parents and students might feel different because their experience feel different. So the questions that I have for you is there anything not working in the district, and how are you addressing it for those people that feel different in this chart?
Is there anything that's not working? Ma'am, there are many things that are not working as well as I would like. So we still have, even though these numbers are going in the right direction, we still have very low academic performance, right? My point here is to say it's getting better. So none of the staff is satisfied with any of these outcomes yet. So the fact that we moved elementary math from 7.9% to 19.1 is amazing in 3 years, but 19.1 isn't anything to celebrate. So I don't want you to think that we are celebrating this or resting on our laurels. Everything here continues to be a work in progress, even some of the numbers that look really astounding, such as the college credit. So, no, I don't find any school administrator, anybody on my team who's satisfied. So we could talk, if you have particular questions about a particular program, I'd be happy to tell you more about how we're working on that, but I don't want this graph to be a signal that we're done, because we're certainly not.
The reason why I ask is because I do a lot of community service, and I interact with a lot of parents and students and stuff like that. And I hear the stories, and their story is completely different than what is showing here. So that's why I asked that question. But I have another question. How much has central administrative spending and the number of non-classroom positions increased over the past years compared to direct classroom investment? And what evidence showed those actions improve student achievement?
Sure, so that's in the book. So you can find the staffing information in a few places. So one place you can see that is on page 38. So page 38 shows by union, and I'll tell you what each of those unions are, and I think that's a good place to start with an answer to your question. So administrators means non-union administrators, such as myself. Local 51 are unionized school and district administrators. 871 are mostly classroom teachers, but also people like school counselors. 2407 are paraeducators. And the rest, 1186, is custodians, MIS, nurses, et cetera, CSOs. 818 are managers and other office workers. 6621 are people like family school liaisons, deans, etc. So how do we know that it's working? It's really the chart that you just pointed out, right? Not every one of our metrics is headed in the right direction, but most of them are. And I guess one thing I would remark on is something that we've done over time is move really talented people out of central office and back out to the schools. So for example, when I arrived, I believe there were a total of 19 people working at the central office academics department. And we've reduced that and moved those people back out to the schools. We also did things like reformat what used to be called NBU, where previously, in order to start the initiative that was called NBU, reading teachers were removed from schools. We, 3 years ago, went through an initiative where we restored reading teachers to each of our elementary schools.
Even though I'm not impressed with these numbers, I can assure you and the community that I will do everything in my power to get what they need because they are the future.
Thank you.
And they are the main reason I'm here. But I have to be honest with you, this didn't impress me. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Delarny.
I just wanted to follow up on Alderwoman Vargas's question about the non-instructional paras. You mentioned many of their tasks are secretarial in nature. My understanding is they do have a lot that they handle for the district, and if you were to eliminate any of the positions, who's going to take that on? How are they going to handle it?
So that was done in consultation with the high school principal, and he believes that he can do so.
The high school principal is going to do it?
No. Perhaps some. He's a busy guy.
Okay. My understanding is they do a lot of work, and I hate to
Again,
see them lose their
I
position.
want to repeat myself. My budget and the budget put forward by the board doesn't have any of these cuts. That's why we're advocating so strongly. The budget increase was not asking you for more services. And in a way, I know this, and I say this to the board almost every year, the superintendent's proposal to the board was almost a boring budget. In the way that I would love to propose 5.3 additional millions of dollars so that we could open our own school for kids with autism. I would love that. As a profession, as a 30-year public educator, that would be an interesting project that I think would be wonderful for the kids of New Britain. But I can't, because our fixed costs go up so rapidly that all really this budget is a maintenance budget. It's not about making things better. We're just trying not to make things worse. So I repeat myself often to remind you that I know that 18.9 million and 14.82% is a ton of money, but that's just to keep things the same.
Alderwoman Barboza.
I have a couple questions. First, on pages 20 and 21, I'm baffled because in elementary school, the ELA and the math scores show they go up, but then they get to middle school and the scores go down. What's going on with the middle schools?
We're working on that right now, and if I had an answer, I would certainly tell you. What we find is exactly what you just said, Alderwoman, is that we are finding that the transition from a 5th grade classroom where they probably only have 1 or 2 teachers into the middle school format where they have 5 or 6 or 7 teachers is just not working for so many of our kids. What we did is we took a look at our data and what we found out that we're very good at and we're very bad at. When we looked at our data, we found that we are really good at lifting kids up out of the lower levels of performance. On the state test, there's 4 levels, 1, 2, 3, 4. When you look at our data district-wide, moving kids out of the 1s and 2s, we're doing really amazing work at that. The trouble is, while we're working on pulling them up, some of the kids that were up here fall back. And we're seeing that most especially in grade 6. So I want that Ms. Whitehead and Ms. Major, our two middle school principals, are keenly aware. They're working with Mr. Richardson. We are looking at every single kid as often as we can. We're implementing new tests. We're using kind of a practice state test called the IAB. But you're exactly right to notice that, and it kind of baffles us too. It's complicated, but we think we're figuring it out. And part of that is, we don't know if we're going to see results in the first year, but we restructured the middle school schedule so that every kid now has an intervention period during the day. So what happens during intervention period is, rather than being mixed, kind of a mixed group of class, during intervention, kids go to a classroom with kids who have a similar need to catch up as they do. We think that's going to help, but some kids are so far behind, it might take 2 or 3 years of help before they really get back up to the proficient level. But you're exactly right to notice that, and we're doing everything that we can think of to work on it.
Now, my next question on that, why are we moving students along and they're not progressing? Like, why is a kid who's struggling in the 6th grade moved on to the 7th grade with those same issues? It's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. And then when they get to the high school, they don't wanna go to school anymore. And it really starts when they're younger. Kids are saying, little kids are saying, because I ask a lot of kids, how's school? You know, do you like school? School is boring. I'm not sure what the students are learning, what they're being taught, but little kids should not be saying they're bored in school. I don't know if the kids are not being given the attention that they need because so much attention is being focused elsewhere. But I don't know. On that note, the resources for middle school, are they equivalent to what the elementary schools get, or they lack more?
So you see the really strong growth that we see in elementary school, and coaches have been really the talk of the town. This is perhaps another answer to Alderwoman Maldonado's question. We know that where we have more coaches, where we have more teachers intervening with kids, and those same teachers then go help their fellow teachers, that's where we're seeing the most growth.
Now,
So the grades that have the most growth, grades 3, 4, and 5, have the most intervention and coaches. Middle school, not enough coaches. Really, I think middle schools have, I believe it's 2 coaches per building, which in much larger buildings compared to 2 coaches for each elementary school.
I haven't looked at the chart on the list of who's getting laid off and who's not returning, but are coaches being eliminated?
They are on the list currently.
Why is that if we recognize that that need is needed, especially in the middle school level?
Ma'am, $18.9 million is a very scary number. And even when we reduced that, even when the cut was 6 million, 6 million, you can't get to 6 million by just kind of finding things around the edges, by finding a person or two in these departments. We don't have a lot of people who are not already working with kids. 6 million is a huge number, huge number. So I'd love to say that I could easily find the 2 or 3 or 4 million that maybe we'll end up short after this process. The fact of the matter is, we don't have a ton of people who are not already working directly with kids. People like to say that. Again, this is my 11th year as a superintendent, both in a suburban district and this urban district. People have the same questions and complaints. You'll have to trust that having been such a poorly funded district for so long, the fancy stuff went away long ago. I know that's not a satisfying answer to a lot of people. People want me to find, oh yeah, we'll just get rid of these people who are just hanging out doing nothing. We don't have those people.
I have 2 more questions.
Sure.
What's your communication spending?
In what way?
In the breakdown as to when it comes to the outcomes, you know, how does the communication spending directly improve student outcomes, classroom support, or academic performance?
It's in the documents you're looking at tonight, ma'am.
Which line items make up the communications?
Sure, Ann can answer that.
So the communications office is on pages 147 and 148 in our budget book. That is $406,000 in staffing and $96,000 in non-personnel expenditures or lines.
$406,000 is required for,
In salaries and personnel costs, and $96,700 in non-personnel costs. Absolutely, it's Spanish, Arabic, and any other translation services.
if Spanish is the biggest growth in student population, why is there one and then there's two Arabic?
Sure, that's because most of our schools, we already have Spanish-speaking staff. We do not have as many Arabic-speaking staff.
Okay. What type of communication is provided?
It's really wide-ranging. So it's everything from the documents you're looking at tonight. It's emergency letters. When something scary happens at a school or on a bus, the communication officer helps the principals get those words out quickly. It's snow days. It's social media to make sure people are well connected. It's running our website. It's running our app to keep people informed about school events, conferences. There's no downtime, ma'am. If we were to reduce that, it would simply be less communication.
I don't know. I don't know how much communication I receive, and I'm on the list. I don't get a lot of communication from the schools, and I have an elementary granddaughter. That's why I'm asking, because I don't get letters in the mail.
I would check with the school's main
I get
office to make
Facebook. I get a Facebook, and
I would
maybe I
check
might
with
get
the
a phone
school's main
call.
office to make sure that they have everything correct for you, ma'am. We typically get complaints about too many of those.
Quite interesting.
Especially on snow days.
And the next question: how many IT personnel do you have?
Sure, Ms. Alfano can answer that. We have a variety of different kinds of IT.
So they're all by category.
Sure, you can list them all.
So, I'll list, that's in our budget book on page 156. So we've got the chief information officer, we have a MIS manager, we have a secretary, we have 2 software specialists, we have 2 computer system specialists, we have 5 computer repair specialists, we have 1 network specialist, we have an MIS support and project specialist, and we have 9 technology assistants.
For 16,000 devices.
Right.
Thank you.
Alderman Nathan Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I should start by saying thank you first to Dr. Gasper for taking the needs of our students seriously. As a New Britain student who has had superintendents not take our needs seriously, who has had elected officials not make the ask that was needed or rise to the task. Secondly, I want to thank our state delegation, because 18.9 million, I think, was a scary number. It's now smaller, thank you, but I'd like to come back to this, this reimbursement rate on outplacements. And if I may, I might ask for Ms. Alfano, right? Ms. Alfano's help. So current spending per student is at 186,000, correct?
That's an average, yes.
It is,
It's an average.
yeah. We can expect a 10% increase there. Okay. So we have 2,500 of our 2,500 students in special needs programs, correct?
That's all students who are designated as special needs, yes.
Thank you. And an outplacement rate of 16%.
More or less, yes.
Okay. So that's around 400 students, just with the numbers that we have here. So that means adding 18.6K, I'm sorry, I'm using the metric system here. That brings the average up to an expected 204.6 thousand thousands, essentially, which is a fancy way of saying millions. Correct me if I'm wrong, that is around a $7.4 million increase in student placements, more or less. So for this reimbursement rate, we're supposed to see 92%. We haven't seen more than 70, but our bottom is 62. Do you remember what year we got that rate?
So in 24-25, what happened was our rate was between 62 and 64%. But then that's when we received that additional excess cost grant near the end of the year. So the year started at that lower 60%, and then by the time we ended in June, it brought us to 72% because they gave us that excess cost additional funding, if that makes sense. But we didn't know about that in the beginning of the year.
Right.
That was right.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not going to bank on that for this budget.
Yeah. So, right.
Growing up in New Britain, it is a common theme where we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So I'm actually leading with that in this budget, with the goal in mind of at least level education. But that 62% rate, what dollar amount did that translate to for the 24-25 year?
So for so we were at approximately a total reimbursement amount was about 8.1 million, and then we received that 1.8 million. I'm rounding, so the 1.8 million in additional funding.
Thank you. And what would just the 8.1 million translate to as, I'm sorry. So we're getting reimbursed $8.1 million there, and then we got a little extra.
Right.
So what would the $8.1 million in today's spending categories translate to as a percent?
Of the total outplacement costs?
Right. So take the like bottom tier real life money that we got from the state that we can, I don't want to say rely on because we don't actually know the number, right? But $8.1 million out of today's spending for outplacements, what percent does that translate to?
Haven't quite well.
Yeah, it would have to probably be like the 50, somewhere.
I would agree, somewhere in the 50, high 50% range.
Yeah.
Again, we haven't seen a rate that low.
Yeah.
I'll meet you in the middle. I'll even go 55% there.
Okay.
Okay. So
We have no reason to anticipate that next year's reimbursement will be that low, but I'm following your logic.
I see. I feel a little optimistic. So basically, if we can't expect 55%, but 62% has happened, there is, I believe, 7% that we can figure into here.
And to be fair, though, 70% has also happened. We don't want to just be worst, we wouldn't be responsible if all we did was present the worst case scenario. So it has been as low as 60, it has been as high as 70, except for that quote bonus that we got in just a single year that nobody knew to expect.
Oh, yeah, and if we get another bonus, it's certainly welcomed. I'm not gonna question that one.
Of course.
I'm just working with the numbers that we have here, and again, thank you for doing the homework, for presenting it here and just laying it out. So in today's spending, what does 7% translate to?
7, not 70.
7%, the difference between 62 and the 55.
I would just do, what's the difference between the 62 and the 70?
So, that 1.7 million, right? Additional fund.
We think approximately 1.7 million.
1.7 million? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I had a follow-up just after. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So this 1.7 million, actually, Mr. Chair, let me dwell on that. Thank you.
Please dwell on it. Alderman McNamara.
Thank you. I appreciate it, beyond what's in your books, if Ms. Alfano or Dr. Gass, you could unpack the transportation budget a bit. What does First Student do? What do we do? I see there's a $1.5 million for bus monitors. I'm sure you're constantly monitoring, or your managers are looking at routes, but, and believe me, I appreciate bus monitors, having driven a school bus in my earlier years with 40 high school students on it. But can you talk about who controls those costs, and
We sure will. sir.
and are these monitors certified and vetted by the Board of Education?
So the basics of that, Ms. Alfano will give the details, obviously, is the monitors are also employees of the bus company. So all of that falls under the same bus contract that went out to competitive bid. Go ahead.
So, in terms of special education transportation, is that what your question was? I'm
Well,
sorry.
actually, the whole ball of wax, but I noticed there was about 8 million for special education transportation?
It's on page 154 in our budget book. So if we look at transportation for special education, we would take the 8.1 million, which is line 55109, and 55110, which is outplaced transportation. That's also special education transportation. So that's approximately 9.5 million for special education transportation. And then we would add the bus monitors, which approximately 1.5 million. So for special education transportation, I would say it's approximately $11 million.
And I appreciate you holding the gasoline budget at as is.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
What's up, Mr. Alderman McNamara? What's that?
Yeah, I wanted. For the benefit of the council, I wanted the transportation line items explained, yes.
Alderman Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Dr. Gasper, none of this outplacement reimbursement is figured into the ask here.
It is, you will find it on the revenues page.
Okay, so it is on the revenues
Yep.
page.
We
Got it.
can direct you to that. And
For this upcoming year.
you can find that on page 30. Again, we're forced to make a very rough guess. It's currently budgeted at 11 million.
11 million, okay. And what does $11 million represent? What percentage is that?
How I got to the 11 million is I basically used the 24-25 percentage with the hopes that they would maintain level reimbursement rate and not reduce it.
So what was last year's reimbursement rate?
So yes, last year we were at the 70, it was the 72.
Without any
70
bonuses, might I add.
72, yeah, 72.7.
72.7.
But it was after the additional funding.
Right, so
Okay.
what is that percent without the additional funding?
So we were somewhere between 62 and 64%.
Okay. Thank you. So the state says we're supposed to get 92%, which an 8% discount is already not great, right? But last year we were funded between 62 and 64% of what we actually spent.
Correct.
I see. Okay.
Well, it's not what we spent, the entire amount. It's what is considered reimbursable by the state.
I see,
right?
I see.
Because it's 4.5 times what the state says is our responsibility or our portion.
Right, I asked
So
that
it's
with
that-
the
it's the
context of
difference.
like qualifying expenses,
Correct.
right, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, and would you happen to be able to answer any questions on the state aid that we had seen? A portion of it is for, I believe, just town aid in general.
We would, are you referring to the, I believe it's 4 point something million, which is separate from the 13.3 million?
Correct. So this would be money, to my understanding, that has some flexibility for the municipality. I do understand it's a one-time revenue, but with the mayor's budget, the MBR shift not actually having a net positive until 3 years down the line, right? One-time revenues, and I'm gonna be fully honest, we're gonna have this same exact conversation next year.
That was actually going to be my closing remarks this evening, Mr. Simpson.
Right.
So, that additional municipal aid certainly is not within our purview. That's fully within the purview of the municipality.
Right. Thank you. Would you happen to have that, I forget the actual number, but it's like 4 point something or maybe 3 and change, the town aid portion.
The town aid. We have smartphones.
Yes.
So it's the 4.6.
4.67 million,
Okay.
according to a social media post from one of our delegation.
My next question was, is this going to be an AI transcription or is this a? Alrighty. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that's it for now.
Oh, I'm sorry. You all set, Mr. Alderman Simpson? Oh, thank you. Alderwoman Scott.
Yes, I'll go. Well,
Good evening.
Thank you guys for coming. Peace and love. And thank you for sharing the information on some of the improvements. I always like the updates every year compared to others and the work that you're doing. And I don't want to raise the temperature, but I do want to just say that we all need to be working together as a team. When we vote on the budget, the city council, you guys delegate where the money goes, and we don't have really any say over it, but we're asking questions because we want to, be clear about what you guys are doing. And we want to prioritize the funding. And it was quite embarrassing when there's all this back and forth when we really just need to be focusing on what the kids need and what our schools need. And I understand some of the concerns that the parents had that were here. The positions that are up for elimination are very concerning. And I have notes because I forget. I'm so tired. We just need to prioritize, and the parents being upset, and then the fact that these schools have not been funded in over a decade needs to be extremely clear. But now, like, this is a new day, and we have a new mayor who really does care about education. He did put some money originally into the funding, which has not been done. Like, let's be clear, it has not been done at all in over a decade. And also, he was at the state, and I witnessed it myself. He was at the Capitol fighting for us to get money for this budget. And I'm really happy that the delegation pulled through and our governor, and we do have some extra funding for our schools now, which has not been funded in so long. And raising the taxes is just not an option, I don't think. Our kids that go to our schools are already struggling in their homes. Their parents are struggling to put food on the table. I spoke to two parents that are unhomed right now that have kids in our schools. One of them is an elementary student. And so I don't think that that's really an option that we have, but I think that we need to be creative and really think outside of the box a little bit about how we're gonna fix this problem, because it is gonna take time, but at least now, we are being proactive with trying to catch up. There is gonna be extra money consistently with this budget, that the money will keep going up for our schools every year. So I hope that people understand that has not happened. It needed to happen, and now it's going to start happening. We will be having the same conversation next year because it's gonna take time to fix the problem, just like it's taking time to fix the education. You come with the updates every year, like our alderwoman just said, it's not, impressive exactly because it's not perfect, but the same thing is gonna happen with this budget. It's not gonna be perfect. It's gonna take time to catch up from a disaster, a complete disaster that has occurred over the past decade. So I have some little ideals. I'm gonna ask you if there's anything that we might possibly be able to do. Is there a way for, I know there's positions that came up about tech or IT. Is there a way to be creative and possibly have students help out with some of that IT stuff? I don't know. I mean, I'm just going.
It's a valid question.
Imagining something.
It's a valid question for sure. I can say, Alderwoman, that I've attempted that in 2 previous districts, and it did not go well.
No.
No.
What about like professional trainings for the teachers? Now, is there a way to possibly, I don't know how much money that costs, but is there a way to possibly, because I think most people in our community and in our state care about education, and professionals care about giving back. I wonder if there's a way to get people, I don't know if there's cost involved with those professional developments, with paying people to come in. People might be able to just take a small stipend or volunteer sometimes. You might be able to get people away. I mean, I don't know.
I understand.
I'm just trying to think, like, if there's ways to maybe cut corners in some areas where we might be able to, as a community, come together and help, because we all need to help out and do our part. Not point fingers, but we all need to do our part and step up to the plate. So I don't know if that's something that we've ever tried.
It's certainly something we have. It's certainly something, we have really good partnerships with a lot of the nonprofits in town, for sure.
Okay, that's good. And is there a way are any of the positions that aren't filled? I know every position is important, extremely when it comes to education, but are there any that aren't filled that we can use some of the funding from?
That's already been considered.
That has, okay.
Absolutely. The vacancies, wherever possible, we've considered those as the first reductions whenever possible.
And is there any salaries of people who are in the higher salary ranking? Is there any way for them not to have maybe a pay, that's probably not an option, but maybe not to take a raise this year?
So I've already met
cut
with
corners?
all of the leaders of our unions, administrators, paras, teachers, everyone. And what I know is that they're all giving it consideration for concessions, right? We hope that it doesn't come to that, but we've already begun that discussion. And what I know is that that would include the senior leadership team and myself, that if we would match whatever concessions are given by those unions.
Okay. Yeah, because I think like the paraprofessionals, I really wish that we could see them getting paid more over time. I think their job is really hard, and the crossing guards, I know they said they need to, some of them can't afford things with the cost of living, and their job is extremely important. They keep our kids safe. So I think that's it. If I think of something, and I was gonna ask what your plans for next year, but I know that came up. We'll be here again. Thank you.
Alderwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Most of my questions were answered already, so it shouldn't be too long. And I'm just asking because I don't know. But I'm looking at the Personnel and Talent Office. And I know you did state that compared to other school districts, we don't have, they have more staffing than what New Britain has. Did you compare like the salary? Because again, I don't know, but these salaries are pretty high.
So I want to actually follow up on a question from Mr. McNamara earlier. The possible reductions list does include a reduction in the talent office. So that's the recruitment and placement specialist you'll find listed as district-wide. So there is a consideration of a reduction in that office already.
Okay. And the recruitment specialist, is that just like, what is their, like, what is it that they have to do? Is it they go out and try to fill in the vacancies?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And then, I had a question about, because I know there are two elementary schools that have different times, which is De Loretto. I'm guessing it's because it's a magnet school and it's with the middle school.
That's
right?
correct.
And why is Smalley the same time as De Loretto?
So that's actually one of our reductions, and it's
Yep,
actually
I do see that.
quite substantial, almost $500,000. That stems from when Smalley was what's called a SIG school, School Improvement Grant School. And they used that grant money to change their hours to provide extra instruction to kids. It's an unfortunate fact that as our schools have done better, when you do better and you're removed from the SIG list, you also lose the money. So with that money going away, we're gonna, part of this proposal, that $500,000 is to bring Smalley back into alignment with the other elementary schools. It's not really possible to have De Loretto aligned with the rest because they're so large, right? Our buses, we say they're in tiers, first tier, third tier. So we need to have enough buses available, right? Most buses do at least 2, if not 3 runs during the day. So it's all about making the best use out of the smallest number of school buses, so it costs us the least money.
Okay. And then I just wanted to touch up on on North End, just because there's a lot of stuff on social media about possibly closing that, and I don't think I was born, but I heard the school district went through something like that with Pulaski. Was a high school, and they had to make a decision to close it. Again, I don't think I was even born, but anyways, no, I wasn't. Well, it's a good thing. But is that, I understand we don't want to have these conversations, just like,
Sure.
right, in our world, we don't want polling locations to close. But, and I understand it's only approximately, according to the book, a $1.1 million saving.
So
But,
it's, I'll say, when we got the confirmation of some additional money, kind of at the middle meeting that we've had, I removed that from consideration, at least what would be my proposal to the board. Instead, what we're going to plan to do is phase out North End. Currently, we did not purposely enroll new kindergartners at North End. It's been a part of the town, part of the city that's really been shrinking in enrollment anyway. Typically, it's been what we call a 2-track, 2 classes per grade level.
Okay.
However, this year, there's only 1 kindergarten classroom because it's just a neighborhood of the city where the people are getting older and we don't have elementary age kids there. The reason I changed my recommendation is also to consider the fact that thanks to the Smith reconstruction project, which is going to be beautiful, it's going to have the brand new early childhood building added onto it. There'll be 22 additional classrooms district-wide coming online. So what that means is, I believe it's 6 or 7 classrooms at Gaffney will then be vacant, and all the classrooms at the Roosevelt campus, where Relk is right now, will be vacant. So what that means is, 2 summers from now, the board and I are going to have to talk about restructuring basically the whole city as far as zones. So what we're looking at is, rather than closing North End right now. My new recommendation, again, things have been changing very quickly, is that we would basically phase out North End over the next 2 years.
Okay. I believe those are all my questions. So I'll ask one more question. Do you think if we would have had at least a little bit of increase every year, do you think you would have been asking for this much money this year?
Absolutely not. That's the chart that Mr. McNamara has. So if going back the 10 or 12 years, whatever Ms. Alfano put on that wonderful chart. So when you go to superintendent school, they teach you somewhere between like a 3 or a 4% increase is a reasonable thing to expect from your municipality, right? If you look at federal inflation, it's usually 3 to 4%. If we had just done half of that every single year, if we had only done 1.5% every single year, this year the request would be 1.01% instead of 14.8. So I completely agree with Mr. Simpson. And again, I don't like to be kind of the bearer of bad news or the wet blanket, but none of us, your side of the table nor my side of the table, enjoy this conversation. But it will repeat itself until really meaningful changes are made in the formula at the state level and how municipalities choose to invest each and every year. It's just like putting money into your savings account or your 401k. Many, many little investments pay off over time, and if you choose not to invest, you end up with these big gaps that we find ourselves with this year. So your question is right on point.
Right. And hopefully, I mean, with the mayor's budget, you know, I think that's a step towards the right direction with the 1 million going towards the MBR.
We agree.
It's just, you know, it is tough.
You have an incredibly difficult
right.
job, and I've said that many times tonight.
Right.
The city needs both snow plows
Right.
and custodians. We need both police cars and teachers, and you have the incredibly difficult job of choosing between them.
Right. Well, it's tougher for people like me. You have my children are in the school district, right? But I don't want my property taxes to go up either.
We completely
So
understand.
it's something we definitely have to sit down and talk more about because we've been talking about it. And we definitely have to save the sports. You know, kids love sports. Some kids hate going to school, doing work, right? But that's what drives them is staying after school, doing all these clubs and yeah. So we have hard decisions to make, but thank you for everything, for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Barbosa. Well, Alderwoman Barbosa.
Superintendent Gasper, I just want to cite you on, I watched the video you did on Facebook, and I just want you to elaborate on some of the things that you mentioned.
Sure.
You stated the check is coming now, the check is coming due now. Based on that, what specific decisions from prior years created this situation? And did you see this coming?
Ma'am, I think it's exactly what we just talked about. It's that what could have been, that 1.5% each year. That's what I meant by that.
And you also stated this is the scariest budget in 30 years.
I'm sorry, Alderwoman, can you just turn your microphone on?
My voice is not loud enough for you?
That's what she said last time.
So that's exactly what I meant. I meant what I said. This is my 30th year in public education. This is my 11th year as a superintendent. It's my 17th year in executive level leadership in a school district. And I said those exact words to Mayor Sanchez when I met with him in January about this budget, to tell him just how scared I was of it. So it's those two things together, ma'am. It's the lack of that 1.5% investment, what could have been each and every year. But the other thing was, and I just want to remind us of the timeline that we were working under. We don't have ESP. We can't predict the future. So when we built this budget, we didn't know about the 13.3 million. What we knew about coming from the state extra was zero. And that's why that chart showed you the past few years have made your jobs and our jobs much easier. To get 9 million in the current fiscal year extra from the state, to get, I think it was 8.6 million in the previous year extra from the state. We might have needed 14 million, but the state took care of 9 million. So that's what I mean by scary, when I know that these costs are going up, when I know that the bus contract goes up by 6%, insurance goes up by 9%, outplacements by 10%, and no additional state money that we knew of at that time, it's really scary. And for me to have to present a 14.82% budget to my board is not fun, right? And that's already wrapping in things like, oh, we know we have these vacancies, or we know we have these retirements. So that's what I meant by scary. And again, I said those words to the mayor himself when I showed him our budget in January. And I've been saying it to the board, I've been saying it publicly as I've talked to people around town. It's scary because I'm the first in my family to go to college. I don't know if you've seen my license plate. My license plate says public ed. I'm publicly educated from kindergarten through my doctorate. What I opened with is not a bumper sticker to me. I believe this district can be a model for other districts. We're not there yet. I completely agree with Ms. Maldonado. But you can't say we're not at least headed in the right direction in a lot of ways.
Do you have any contingency plans in place or working so that maybe in the future, in the next couple of years, we're out of this issue, we're out of this situation?
Man, we're in some states, the school district is a taxing authority. We don't have the ability to raise our own funds. So we can be as lean as we possibly can, right? We can put as many resources towards the kids as we can, but contingencies, no. We don't have a reserve fund such as the city does. The board, 2 years ago, the board voted to create a reserve fund for us. We don't have any money to put in it. We haven't opened it because all we would do is be accruing fees at the bank. So my contingency, which is not exactly an answer to your question, I'm sorry, is to do everything in my power to convince people that these kids, they can, and these teachers can, and I will meet at every PTO. I think I was at the state legislature 3 times this year. I think I was at the state legislature at least twice last year. I will talk to anybody who's willing to listen about the fact that we are spending money wisely. You hear from lots of people at the supermarket, you hear from lots of people at Mass, well, what about this and what about that? I'm here to tell you, nobody's perfect, but we are spending money as wisely as we can find a way to do so. So my contingency, as somebody who believes enough in public education to have it on his license plate, is to talk to every single person that'll listen and tell them the way we currently fund our schools, the way we currently fund our children is broken. I'm sitting on a statewide task force right now about special education costs because the person who runs my statewide association, I think she got sick of hearing me talk about it so much. So she forced me to be on this committee. It's a shame what's happened, and it's not just in this city, right? If you look at what my counterpart in New Haven is going through right now, their gap is even bigger. The number here was 18.9 million. The number for level services in Bridgeport was 44 million. It's a terrible thing all around. And again, that's not a direct answer to your question about contingency. There are some states where people get a separate tax bill called the school tax. Connecticut isn't one of those. What we can do is come here and advocate with you all, talk to parents who advocate with you all, talk to parents who advocate with our state legislators. Beyond that, I don't have the ability to create dollars.
Alderwoman Delarnia and then Alderman Simpson.
So I'm glad the state stepped up this year and we've gotten this windfall. They haven't in the past. My understanding is they're looking at the ECS formula, and if there's a task force or something that's going to be working on that. So let's just hope this isn't a one-time one-time jolt that we get. We need to see the same funding again next year and the year after.
I agree.
There was one other question I had about staff administrators. You mentioned 2.7% of all staff is administrators.
Yep.
What are the layoffs there as far as administrators?
So you have that in the document, if you have, from April 29th. 3. And again, all 3 of these people are currently doing work that benefits kids.
What are the titles?
Sure. It's District Coordinator of Career Pathways, Assistant Coordinator of School Culture, and District Coordinator of Research and Development.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Just to speak a little optimism into this budget, I will absolutely 100% stand by the idea that our students are worth every single teacher that they need. That being said, you know, I see a bonus coming in, or not that I see it coming in, but it's been mentioned multiple times. Do you guys know how often we just get extra money at all? Like out of the last 10 years, how many times has that happened?
So for example, the excess cost reimbursement bonus that Ms. Alfano spoke of, nobody knew was coming. I haven't heard of that happening recently. What's important to know of the 9 million extra in ECS, and for us, ECS and Alliance is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The 9 million Alliance / ECS this year, the 8.6 last year. And the reason why we were supposed to be flat for next year, right, is because I think it's 6 or 7 years ago, the state conducted a survey and they found out that some districts, like New Britain, were underfunded. So we were put on a very steep catch-up curve to get back to full funding. But that's the full funding based on the 2013 formula that we've all heard so much about recently. So it was wonderful to be getting these increases, and again, we know that our state delegation advocated for us in that. But arriving at full funding means we were then scheduled to go flat. So that was the 0 increase that Ms. Alfano and I were looking at when we built the budget. I wish we could predict how often we might get a little money here and a little money there. Again, it hurt to prepare this $18.9 million budget. If we could have predicted the future back in October that this 13.3 would arrive, we certainly would have done so. But it's a great question, but I would just say that it's above my pay grade.
Mine too. In terms of phasing out North End, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the city owns the buildings and the land that this Board of Ed uses to conduct education operations, right?
In Connecticut, that is true.
So we could say the city of New Britain is the Board of Education's like landlord, effectively.
I'm not good enough to cite statute, but I believe that
in a very general
right.
sense.
So they are
we have space. The Board of Ed then pays us for that.
They are the
space.
Board of Eds to upkeep, to maintain, to to keep care of in every way, until such time as the board takes a vote to turn it back over to city control.
I see. So for lack of a better term, that lease, right?
Sure.
Is perpetual until the board decides otherwise, or is there an expiration?
I'm not an attorney, but that's my understanding of the statute.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
So I would just expand upon that just to say that the board and I have begun conversations about how we should use our buildings. And those have been held in public session, so these aren't confidential conversations. Should the city go back to having 3 middle schools rather than 2?
Right.
Because once RELC, which is one of the 2 big programs at the Roosevelt campus, so then what could be done with the North End School? Could the North End School become, as I kind of dreamt of earlier in this meeting, could that become a special education school where we can keep even more of these outplacements home? So the board has begun those conversations. I believe we do not have spare space, most especially, we'd love to have a better space for our adult education program, which is currently hosted across the street through the good graces of the LEAD Association. We need more space for our special programs, as I said, and we need more opportunities for alternative high schools, such as the current Satellite Careers Academy and/or Brookside. Those are both programs that could expand in the number of kids if we had the space for it.
Okay, and when you say keep them home, do you mean in New Britain or in the New
Yes.
Britain public school system?
Both. So, for example, if we had more space and could afford the staff, we could expand our KEY program and keep more kids with substantial autism here rather than sending them to one of those expensive outplacements.
So in effect, the move here would be to repurpose North End, not simply close it down, close the book and say, oh, there goes another school.
That's going to be my advice to the board, yes.
Good. That is very pleasing to hear because I had about 50 letters sent to my house, not even the council mailbox, my house, right? The mail person was like, hey, I don't know what you did, but good luck, right? And I grew up at North End. I live on the same stretch of road as that school, and being, you know, one of the many of us who goes out and door knocks and asks for people's votes, when they reach out, I door knock them back, and the parents are terrified, right? But in effect, if having this school repurposed to accommodate the special needs students we are otherwise outsourcing, right? That 16% of our population, I'm not gonna say might shrink, but it could, in theory, stagnate, bringing the services they need while reducing our reliance on these reimbursements, which are partially happening partially.
That would be our hope. That's
Thank you.
one of the plans we've discussed already.
Thank you.
I think Alderman, Alderwoman Vargas, then Alderwoman Luna.
Thank you. Do you have an approximation on what that might cost if you've already started exploring repurposing North End for?
No, ma'am, that's something that we would only do with the help of an architect.
I just wondered. Have they considered rezoning or allowing for more kids from other areas to come to North End? Has that been considered at all?
So when we were
population?
looking at the most severe cuts, when we had 49 people on our non-renewal list, which we do not have anymore, I spoke to the board. If we needed to reduce that many teachers, at the elementary level, there were really only two possible ways. One would be the full closure of North End. The only other option, if we had to reduce that many teachers, would be to rezone each and every school over this summer, and I think that would have created chaos. Many people knocking on your doors and my door, because it might be, well, 32 families from Smalley need to go to Chamberlain, and 12 families from Vance need to go to North End. Yeah, I know your kid's been here for 4 years, but I'm sorry, we're moving them now. So it's definitely something we're aware of. I believe that's what will need to happen in order to serve the kids well 2 years from now. Again, when the new Smith comes online, that's 22 more classrooms in the district that we can repurpose in a way that serves people. So I think the 13.3 million lets us delay the closure of North End for a little bit and lets us make plans for what will happen in the summer of 2028.
Thank you. For the multilingual learners, do you have do you know how many languages are
Is Dr.
currently?
Maya Molina behind me?
Huh?
Well, we currently have 43 different languages in the district, but we have bilingual programming in 3 languages.
Is it 43?
43 total languages, and bilingual programming is in Spanish, Arabic, and Ukrainian.
Can you explain a little bit about the specific supports that are provided with the multilingual learners? Can you just elaborate, because I see that it continues to increase, and I just wondered.
Thank you.
Huh?
I'm just having her stand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, so I see that the multilingual
Just a moment.
learners.
Sylvia, can you join the microphone over there?
Yeah, come to
please?
the mic. Thank There's no more.
That might be better because I couldn't hear.
All right, see? I don't know if she needs the mic now, but she's so close.
Thank you. So you said 43 different languages. I do see that the amount of learners continue to increase. So I was just wondering if there was a budget projection on how much that may cost or how much is involved with teaching multilingual learners?
Currently, we are able to serve all of our students with our current staffing. We had a bit of a reduction up at the high school this past year, so when we were asked to look at our current programming to see if any cuts could be made, that's where I saw some reductions.
Do you think that'll impact their progress? Because I also see that there was some great improvements, and so I would like to see that continue.
Yes, I will too. I will ensure that that happens. I think that with the current programming that we have at the high school, the staff that are there will be able to ensure that that continues to happen.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions I have for you. I have a few more questions.
Thank you, Sylvia.
I know we keep asking about the same question,
That's
but
okay.
back to the percentage of staff and administration. I know that you said that 2.7 and compared to the other cities, you're reducing 3. Is there any place that we can see a comparison of salaries compared to the other towns? Because I think this is the staffing, but is there a salary comparison with how much we're paying the staffing?
I have a general answer, and that is, we negotiate these contracts in good faith each and every, usually 3 to 4 years. And those contract negotiations are always based on kind of going rate. Both parties, both the board side and the union side, bring comps,
So everyone's pretty much on the same line, all the cities get about the same for the same
this area.
positions?
For this area, there's, for this geographic area, yes. So, other than that, you would have the same access to these documents as I would.
I know, I just wonder where I could find that, so I could.
No, they're gonna be on every Board of Education's website, but what I can say is, the process is union negotiations, just like the city does with its unions, where both sides bring their proposals, and we look at who are we overpaying, underpaying, and the trick is to pay just enough, right, to keep your best people, right? Because if you don't pay people going rate, then they go elsewhere.
True. One more question. We all just discovered that the deputy superintendent is leaving.
Correct.
And so I wondered what that position involves, and if that's a position that we can kind of combine with something else and see some savings in that area, because that's a big amount of money, so.
So I will confidently say that the improvements that we've seen so far would not have been possible without Dr. Velasquez. And a district this size needs a deputy superintendent.
Can you explain the job a little bit more
Of
about what
course.
they do?
So first and foremost, she serves as my proxy whenever I can't make it to something or I'm away from the district. First, her primary responsibilities are over everything academics. She oversees many other things, but so everything about curriculum, teaching, instruction, assessment, professional development as well, all fall underneath her purview, along with other duties as well.
Hold on. I have a lot of things circled. Nope, I think all my other questions were answered already.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Alderwoman Luz Luna?
I just have one question. So I know during COVID, we got a lot of funding and to try to get more support for the children. Are those positions still, we're trying to fund them, or have they faded away?
No, that's actually the first and very, very difficult task I took on when I was appointed as superintendent. So under the previous administration, 300 people were hired with temporary money. And in my first year of building a budget, so we built the budget for the 2023-24 school year, which was for building the budget for my second year here. I asked each and every budget owner, meaning every principal, every department leader, to reduce that ESSER-funded staffing by half, because we had to have an off-ramp. There were some schools that didn't, some school districts that didn't do that. They went from having all of their staff to none. So, to my knowledge, we have not retained any of that temporary funded staff, maybe one or two, perhaps in the multilingual department where we had hired some bilingual teaching assistants. But other than that, all of those positions had to be reduced when the money went away.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Maldonado.
I want to say thank you to Diana and to the rest of the team. I know this has been extremely difficult the last few weeks, but I want you to know that you got my support and I'm here for all of you, and thank you.
Alderman Santiago.
There's more, no questions really. I've been just listening. I've been absorbing. I just, again, as you all know, I've been advocating about education since I got sat on this seat. And I sat in the Capitol last night when the session was over and having the discussions with the senators and state representatives. And again, thanking them for their work, their hard work to get them 3.3. When I heard that, I was ecstatic. Again, because I hear comments from individuals about that our state delegates need to step up, and they did. They stepped up big time. And I want to say kudos to them and to the mayor that sat there furiously as many times as you went. He was there, and he was there more than that to advocate about our school system. And it's one of those things where we sat these 3 days to listen to everyone's departments and all their money, about where there were cuts. And if you noticed, there was a lot of negatives in those budgets. They slimmed down pretty tight just to make sure that we weren't raising taxes. We were making sure that that all the services were still gonna be met, right? And so we're here sitting, discussing what can we do to help you guys? Because again, at the end of the day, we're not here to just pass by. We want to make sure that our students, our teachers are supported, our staffs are supported. Just one question, that I observed. I know that we have an IEP where students have transportations that have to be met. How is that possible if some parents decide not to use that service? Is their fundings ever withdrawn, or is it continually used? Say for instance, we have Mike is getting the IEP services, and the parent decides they want to just take the kid to school and bring them back, pick them up, right? But they're on the list to be picked up. Now, is those monitored, and are those, is first students saying, hey, we're not picking up the student, we need to take the deductions? Is that, is that discussions are happening, or is it just, they, collecting on that just as much as any other?
No, so as you know, we started the year with a lot of struggles with first student, and I want to publicly give kudos to Mr. Rich Valerio, who's our transportation manager, and the staff in his office, along with Ms. Gonzalez, who's our chief operating officer. They've even gone to the lengths of looking at the GPS data of the buses to find out if the kids are being picked up or not. Now, it's not often that it's just one child on the bus. So chances are, if one child's getting driven to school, we probably still need that van or that bus.
Correct.
But Mr. Valerio has been working so hard on this. This is a little bit of a side. I invented a new kind of project for my team. We call them Apollo 13 projects. You know that part in the movie where they had to make it some kind of breathing apparatus out of Dixie cups and stuff like that? Well, we had 3 Apollo 13 projects. One was about outplacements, one was about subs, and one was about transportation. And thanks to Mr. Valerio, we've arrived at a point where we think we're saving about $7,000 a day over what we were doing earlier in the year, just because he's really gone over everything with a fine-tooth comb. So, in your example, yes, it's checked. Does it automatically save money? Not necessarily. If there were already 3 other kids on that bus, and each bus might only have one monitor for 3 or 4 or 5 kids, So it doesn't automatically save us money, but it might allow us to then combine a van. If 2 kids drop off of this van and 4 kids drop off of that one, we might be able to combine it and save some money. And that's what Mr. Valera has really been working hard on for about 5 or 6 months now.
Okay, appreciate that. That's due diligence. Just another question is there any thoughts of widening the radius of the 1 miles to 1.5 for the middle schools and the high schools? I know it's been difficult for students to, even attend school now, right? I mean, but have you noticed that is this because of the busing, or is it because the more determination of these kids are wanting to go to school? That if there was a chance to widen the radius so that way we're combined, because I've noticed me just waking up in the morning and driving through the cities just to get to work. And I could see, there's clusters of children at one area, but then I could see maybe 2 or 3 at another area. I was just wondering if there's chances where there could be, widening the radius a little bit more on the older children as well as.
We're already pretty wide.
Okay.
Ms. Alfano, do you remember the actual state regs on that?
It's a mile.
It's a mile.
For K to 3.
Right.
I'll be honest with you, Alderman, having a first grader walk that far scares
absolutely.
me. Scares me. For the older kids, I'll admit I didn't learn this until a couple of years ago. It's already quite far. So 2 miles from the high school is almost to Little Poland. It's almost to Little Poland. So the walking distance to the high school is already quite long. Could it save us money? Yes. As a lifelong educator, it would not be one of my recommendations to the board because now I'm going to sound really old because of the way people drive these days.
Oh, I believe.
When I see the way, what has happened to how people drive on the roads since COVID, I'm scared to drive my car. So that you're exactly on the right track. That in a perfect world, I think that could save some money. It wouldn't be one of my recommendations, though, really just because of safety concerns.
I might have to age up myself too, because we never had buses, to be honest. I've walked 5 miles to school from across Newark, one end to the other, because again, we only did have one high school and one middle school, so we would have to walk across wherever depended on where we were living at, and of course, we live in multiple areas in the city, and we would have to walk, and even in school, snowstorms. We would not know what snowstorm cancellation was until you knocked on the door or you got to the school and they wouldn't let you in. So, so I understand the safeties and I absolutely understand about the driving that's out there now. I mean, I've multiple times had individuals just cross me just because they want to go from one lane to the other with no consideration. And again, I would not want to have any of these children have any, in my conscience that I said, okay, we got to widen this up, and then again, something happens to them, God forbid.
Exactly.
But I mean, again, I know you guys did your due diligence, right? And we've been trying our best. Again, each day that we're sitting here, listening to all the departments, and knowing that, asking them, right? Are they doing, even with their cuts, is there possible to be able to continue to do the services? Because again, we don't want the city that pays, at a 37%, 30 point something we're at right now, as just to request that Willamette, New London is actually at 22 point something. So, and their grand list is a little bit bigger than ours. So that's the way, I was just looking at it when you did it, just to kind of, even though you're doing a comparison, I was trying to see the comparison as well. They have a bigger grand list than we do, and they do have a better, a tax, they could have a fluctuation of if they wanted to bring up their taxes, but I'm sure right now, the way the city is, we're struggling. I mean, again, at the point where Alderwoman Luna said that, to the point where if we even raise taxes, then we might have more homeless, right? And the students that we're so concerned about might not have a home to even worry about going to school, and private school would be the only warm place for them. But at this point, I'm absolutely listening to everything, all the concerns, and I appreciate the teachers and staff members that are sitting there, having your back and having the students in the concerns and their livelihood, because again, obviously, it's their paychecks, right? They have to support themselves as well. But I'm here we're here to listen and basically chunt down some more and see what we could do.
We appreciate the partnership.
Yep, thank you.
You forgot to say, going to school uphill both ways. Alderwoman Barboza.
Back to the communications department. I'm seeing here that there's 9 tech assistants for a total of $510,000, $500,000.
Sorry, do you mean MIS, ma'am?
Yes. What are the day-to-day responsibilities of these 9 techs?
So that is basic computer repair, making sure that they can access all the right software and access the internet. Again, we have 16,000 devices.
Can any of these positions overlap one another?
Not without extending our wait time for repairs. I don't know if Mr. Prokop is behind me, but I think the wait time for our repairs was somewhere around 6 or 7 days. So reducing the MIS staff would only make teachers and kids wait even longer to get their devices repaired.
Have you considered outsourcing?
That would not be something that I recommend to the board. I've worked in a district with outsourced, and what I find is they tend to be less invested in making things go well. When they're just coming here for a paycheck and they're not actually one of our employees who sees the fruits of their labor, my experience, having worked in a district with it outplaced.
How long ago was that tried?
How long ago was that? That would have been in 2016-17.
In this district?
No, ma'am.
Have you considered it, trying it in this district, knowing the budget that we're
Ma'am, based on my
discussing?
experience, it would not save much money and it would not provide better services. It's something that the board can consider if they wish to, but it would not be something that I recommend to the board.
Alderman Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry to bring this back to North End again. What's the student capacity of North End, or even how many students per class are there on average right now? If you would.
So what I know of with looking forward without enrolling a kindergarten for next year, the total impacted students is 158.
Thank you. So back to the level services ask. Does that include keeping North End as is, or does that include the shedding of the kindergarten entrance?
The shedding of kindergarten would be less than the level services.
I see. Well, do we have a budget estimate on this, like the trade-off there?
It's not much. I think it's 1 teacher and 1/2 of a custodian.
I see. In terms of FTEs, not humans, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. And just on the subject of transportation and walking, I used to be a walker. When I was a student at Vance, I remember being able to walk down Shadow Meadow and have a nice walk, right? But that's because I lived 4 minutes from the school walking as like a 2nd grader. And today, that very same street is barely laced with trees, which means the walk to school today is literally hotter than when it was when I was a student. And we all want our kids to be hydrated. So if I can take my urban planning cap and put it on, you know, if we're increasing the length of distance that our students have to walk and the temperature is not going down, need I remind us, we control the water supply here, right? Increased water usage means higher water bills for our residents, right? And it may be nickels and dimes at first, but increased water consumption is increased water consumption. So when I hear that students have to walk maybe up to 2 miles, in terms of walkability, this is not conducive to our city plan, right? We want a city where our services are accessible by foot for the people who need them. And this includes our students. So having a walking distance of up to 2 miles at a 20-minute mile, this is 40 minutes that our students just have to be on their legs, right? That's 40 minutes out of bed. That's 40 minutes that could be traded if mom and dad wake up early enough to drive them if they have the car, right? So I'm committed to a level services budget And you said 1 teacher and 1/2 custodian?
For the current plan of the phase out, yes.
I see.
Yep.
Okay. It, I know it gets down to literally the dollar, but would you have a number?
Ms. Alfano would help us with that. I believe
Thank you, Ms.
it's-
Alfano.
We changed. That's at the high school.
So, the custodian's approximately 60,000, so it'd be about 30,000 or so.
Let's say about $110,000.
110,000. Okay. It's not everything, but this is, and the 110,000 is not included in the 18.9.
No, but it is represented on the reductions that I presented to the board on April 29th.
Gotcha. So this new 5 million and change ask, does that include the 110?
No.
Okay.
It does not include the reduction of the 110.
Thank you.
The 110 would be one of the proposed ways of meeting an amount that's less than the full budget request.
Right. But, and this is where I kick the ball back to your court.
Sure.
Our job is to essentially sign the check, and then you guys do what you will with it.
Absolutely.
And according to this plan, there's a phasing out of some services.
That is correct.
So with level services, this means we're going to then cut the check that pays for the services that are being phased out.
If you funded every single dollar, then yes, you are correct. But I would remind you that these reductions, such as anything happening at North End, is potential, as it has been presented all along, right? It hasn't been presented as these cuts definitely will come. This document was presented in the eventuality that we don't get the full funding.
I see. Thank you.
Alderman McNamara.
Yeah. I just want to put a wrap on this for me in terms of as in the next few weeks as our caucuses consider proposals and addressing the 4.4% deficit. I'm sure we can keep the lines of communication open, particularly with any more clarity you can bring to the impact of that 4.4% deficit. I think you've alluded to some things tonight.
Yes.
But I don't have complete clarity on that impact.
We would very much welcome open lines of communication. I hope you'll, you know how to find my office, Mr. McNamara. You walk over anytime, ring the phone, send me an email.
While I was up in Maine, I walked 6 miles through the snow to St. John's School.
So you've just said exactly what was going to be one of my closing remarks, Mr. McNamara, is our goal is that you all are as informed as possible. So I hope that anybody on the council will contact my office, and we're happy to provide any follow-ups that you need.
Thank you, Dr. Casper. I believe Alderwoman Scott.
I wanted to go back to, well, mentioning the communication. I know that you and I have spoken. He is open to speaking with us on the phone if we need to. But back to the transportation, I think it's really dangerous, actually, that our kids are walking such a far distance alone in these times. It's statistically the most dangerous time for young people is after school. They can get into a lot of things, so I hope that maybe one day we can revisit the distance that our kids are traveling. My niece walks very far away. She gets dropped off and then she has to walk, and I try to pick her up as much as I can, but it's a long, it's a long walk. But is there something that the state might be looking at? I don't know if you're aware of it, for transportation, because is the cost alarmingly, does it seem like it's a lot or within the budget?
It's something that every district struggles with.
Right.
There are not many providers. And more of the providers are being owned by national companies. So I was asked, we have a provider here in town, of course, we have DATCO.
Yeah.
They were a bidder. but it was judged that their bid was not responsive. We hope that they will bid again.
Right.
But as far as keeping transportation costs down, there's just not much competition out there. There are fewer bus companies now than there used to be. And as I said, for example, First Student is a nationally owned private equity company. So it's getting more and more difficult to find 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 competitive bidders who fully fulfill the RFP that we put out when we go out to contract.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that because it's a lot of money.
It
that
is
we
a lot of
spend
money.
to
And
drive the
when
kids
people
to
ask me
school.
about it, the quickest way of thinking about it is a bus costs about the same as a teacher per year.
And then the other question I have is, how long is North End, how long have you been looking into this possibility of closing North End?
The board and I started these kind of strategic conversations about 1.5 years ago, right? We did not discuss closing North End specifically. The only reason North End came up as a possible closing was when we were looking at a more than $12 million budget gap, right? Before the announcement, this is why I keep coming back to the timeline of when we knew about this money. Before we knew that $13.3 million was coming, I knew that the mayor wasn't going to be able to give us 18.9 million. I knew that this council wasn't going to be able to give us 18.9 million, but that was the real number. So it's a terrible part of my job to inform the Board of Education what that might look like. So that's why it came out in the way that it did.
How many students go there now?
So that's what I just said to
Yeah.
Alderman Simpson. We have purposely not enrolled a kindergarten there,
Okay,
so we will
that's
phase
right,
out the school. There's 158.
Okay. Yeah, so it's small. Well, I'm happy, like, if we do end up closing, it's gonna be repurposed to serve, you know that I'm a huge fan of, like the satellite school, Brookside. I've seen with students that I work with that they do well there in those settings. And keeping it here, so then they don't have to be transported. The transportation costs could be cut down too.
We would-
And that's a struggle for a
we
lot
would
of
love
kids
that, but
to have
that's
to
gonna be-
travel to Hartford or, you know.
We would love that, but that's gonna be more conversation with this council, because we're gonna need a bond to renovate that school, at least a mild renovation, and then we're gonna need the money to staff it. Right, we can't turn that into a wonderful school for kids with autism without the staff. So that'll be another conversation with this council.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you.
Alderman Barrero.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for sticking it out this so far. I mean, I know it's late. I just want to just got one question. I know the superintendent mentioned that this is the lowest request you've had to the city thus far in your 4 years here. My question was, has the city ever met your full request?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe this year.
Oh, that's what I was wondering.
We're hoping.
Okay, I was just wondering. I'm one of the recent council members here, so I'm not aware of that.
I would also say, in fairness to this council, never in my 11 years of being a superintendent.
Okay.
So it's not unique to New Britain.
Thank you for that. And just thank you guys for still being here. And I just want to extend for anyone who I do not cross paths from now till Sunday, Happy Mother's Day for those mothers who are out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that's your cue, Mr. Chair.
You got a couple of votes now. Oh, yeah. Alderman Santiago?
No, that's pretty much.
You live?
Yeah. Anyone has any more questions?
Any other questions?
No,
I just
we
have
think-
a- I
You
just-
guys are fine?
I just have a couple of, kind of on a light note. What didn't go well, Dr. Casper, with the, with Casper, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
With what Alderwoman Scott suggested.
With
The students
I'm
helping
sorry.
out.
Oh, with the. So what's important to know is.
You don't have to go into details.
No.
I just-
But it's actually very. Number one, the students, and they could only be trusted with kind of the lowest of the low-tech fixes.
That's what I.
But what's also important to know is the technology now is so much more than just typing up a paper. So kids' personal information is often transmitted over our technology, teachers' personal information. So we have to be really, really careful about privacy.
And my other comments and questions is furlough days. Have you thought about maybe some furlough days for non-educational staff?
So that is exactly the proposal that I brought to all of our unions.
Okay. And grants. Do we still get grants from federal, state?
We just got a grant that we didn't know we got.
Okay.
Right, what was that one that we just found out about for the PSAT?
Oh, the post-secondary.
So the answer is yes. You know, when we see a grant that is right for us, we pursue it. What's important to remember about grants is they're not cash in hand. They always come with strings. So you can have the money, but you have to spend it exactly how we tell you to spend it. And we have to be careful. I'll say this, and this is, I'm trusting you all. In my first year here, I turned back a state grant because in my judgment, that was called the LEAP initiative. That was for districts that didn't already have things like FSLs and Mr. Vavracek who are already working hard on attendance. They said, oh, here's a grant that'll help you do home visits. We already had tons of people doing home visits. So I judged that the actual management of the grant, the actual bureaucracy and the paperwork of the grant was gonna cost us more time and effort than the grant was worth. So sometimes we either just don't apply, or that was one that had been applied for, and in my first year, I chose to give that money back to the state because it was not a net win for the kids of New Britain. But when we find one that we think is right, that helps, then absolutely, yes, we do pursue it.
And my last question, comment, if you will, is without minimizing the adoption, is what about thinking outside the box, adopt a school through the private sector, adopt a school campaign.
Oof.
Through the private sector.
Who should we pursue first?
You, I'm sure you have some contacts.
Maybe Riley's could provide the food?
But that was just, like I said.
No, thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Any other questions for? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you all for your questions. Thank you for the tone of this meeting. We appreciate the partnership.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. So seeing no further questions, the motion.
Motion to refer.
To refer this item with a neutral recommendation. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it.
Two more. Can I help you out?
Moving to the next item.
I don't think I.
May I have a motion to remove item number 37-140-1 from the table? 37.
Okay, I'm gonna need some.
That's the act upon resolution regarding the special revenue funds.
Okay. All right.
Give the gavel.
Thank you.
Yeah, we still got a meeting. We still got a meeting.
Yeah.
We apologize.
It's all right. Your Honor, I make a motion to remove item number 37140-1 off the table.
Second by Alderwoman Luna.
This was to, oh yeah, you got finished.
Go ahead.
I'll move it out table. We got to agree to move it out table first.
To remove off the table? All in favor?
Aye.
All nays? Ayes have it.
It's just to remove and send it back to the council with a neutral recommendation.
Okay. Next one
No,
is.
all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All nays? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Next item.
Moving to the next item is, may I have a motion to remove item number 371-141-1 from the table?
Your Honor, Mr.
Alderman
Chair.
Santiago?
Make a motion to remove item number 37141-1 off the table, from the table.
Second.
Second by Alderman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
All nays? No nays? Oh,
right.
the ayes have it.
This is to send back to the council with a neutral recommendation.
All in favor?
Aye.
All nays? The ayes have it.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn, second by Alderwoman Barboza. This
Aye.
meeting is adjourned at 9:30. Good job. Thank you, bud. Everybody, thank you, everybody. Right? You should have asked for a Reese's bud.
I was going to, but I was like, let me get it over.